Yeah, you can introduce us. In this corner. No. My name is Mercedes Landazuri. I am technology director at Peacock Colors in the suburbs of Chicago, and my counterpart is.
I am Lynzie Nebel, and I am an upstream quote engineer for Cytiva here in, well, I'm in Erie, Pennsylvania, but I work remotely because #pandemic.
And with our powers combined, we are PlastChicks.
PlastChicks.
The voices of resin.
That's us.
But you're also a bigger deal. You're vice president of membership engagement.
Vice president membership engagement for the executive board for the Society of Plastics Engineers, and board member for injection molding division, Northwest Pennsylvania, and no longer a secretary for the foundation.
Oh, really? Oh, maybe I should step up then. So I'm counselor for culinary appearance division and immediate past chair. Pass that on at the beginning of July of recycling division. And then let me throw in another organization. I'm a very involved member of Color Marketing Group, which is the premier color forecasting association that forecasts trends globally. Leatrice Eisman, executive director of the Institute, has complimented me on my presentations and stuff like that. So no big deal.
Impressive.
And we have a podcast. Yeah, PlastChicks is a podcast.
And if you want to find us, we're on Twitter at PlastChicks. No I in between the T and C. People get a
P L. Okay. Oh no, like Lynzie, your cheerleading skills. P. Give me a P. No, PLASTCHICKS.
And you can follow us on Instagram, and then podcasty places.
Wherever you get your podcast, or you can just go to 4spe.org/podcasts.
Oh. All right.
The only ones.
So that's our intro, Lem.
We're super and we're super happy and grateful to be here, and we're really looking forward to this.
Oh, thank you. You guys were a pleasure to talk with. Over the last 3 hours, we talked about plastics, why there's a stigma in plastic, how people should fix that stigma. We talk about how maybe governments or not quite governments or systematic ways to fix the stigma on plastics or to make plastics even better for people. We talk about, which I actually think I wish we would have had more time to dive into, is you guys' views on being women in a male dominant industry. That was something
we did touch on that. We did
touch on it, but
we could always bring Laura on for
yeah, that'd be awesome.
Conversation.
For more gasoline on the fire.
And then we talk about vibrators, dildos, the plastic
tampons?
behind it, tampons, yes, yep. And so
how most of those things are designed by men.
Yes, yes,
made for women.
Yeah. Stay tuned for the rest of the podcast, people. Thank you. This is a portion of the full podcast. Be sure to check out the rest on PlastChicks. PlastChicks can be found on YouTube and on www.4spe.org/podcasts. I really like the question that we wrote it down. It was
cut 'em off.
What of each other? What do you guys appreciate and or admire in the professional career, and what you guys have accomplished of each other, Mercedes and Lynzie?
Nothing.
Are we starting now? Are we starting now?
Yeah.
We're just rolling right in.
Yeah.
We're meeting you.
Well, I mean, I love about Mercedes that like she came from a totally different background and just like, this is going to sound aggressive, but forced her way into this industry and then forced herself to be like a powerhouse. Like people respect her opinion. People, look to her opinion. I look to her opinion all the time. And like, I don't like a lot of people or a lot of people. And, and when I ask her a question, especially like with regards to color, I'm not asking her as a friend. I'm asking her as like a professional consultant. I have speed dial that I talk to with GIFs instead of regular forms of communication. And
for those of you listening at home or in the car, wherever you're listening, GIFs or GIFs. Like a lot of people.
Yeah.
I believe the official.
Lindsay, I know. Lindsay's using the correct pronunciation, but a lot of people mispronounce it. So
I'm going by the books. Engineer. I'm not going to deviate.
Yeah. We have at least 4 listeners in helicopters, right?
Oh, wow.
I think at that point it's pronounced Jice.
That's how rich you are.
Yeah. And then, when it comes to like our podcasting, she's the absolute perfect partner because I consider myself a little bit of an extrovert in terms of engineer. I'm a total extrovert.
Oh yeah.
But I am more introverted, and I always tell Mercedes, especially when I'm not like 100%, if I know the guest, it's one thing, but if I don't know the guest, I'm like, Mercedes, I'm going to lean on you hard for this one today because she can carry a conversation. She can easily navigate an interview. I just add snipey little comments and like really
it works. It's perfect.
Mercedes and her sidekick, Lynzie, when it comes to interviewing.
Not true. But thank you. But what I admire most about Lynzie and what I feel like, so Lynzie and I have, maybe we should tell the whole story, but we can say that later. But yeah, we can say that.
Tell the whole story. Tell us a story.
But I want to answer the question first.
Okay.
Just because that's having like formerly been in sales, it's like, okay, I need to answer this person's question.
Okay.
I can't like do a big story. I need to say like a yes or no. So what I love most about Lynzie and admire most and what helped me get to where I am is just how authentic she was. We met pre-COVID, but ironically we met on a conference call. And met, worked together on a project on a conference call, no video, just audio for probably 8 months, 6 months, something like that.
Oh, wow.
And it just immediately, it was a different voice. It was, she didn't sound like anybody else that I had encountered in the industry. And it was just so authentic. And listen, she wasn't swearing on the calls. But yeah.
I pause internally for the swears.
But it was, she was just so real. And I felt like, as Lynzie mentioned, I came from a completely different industry. I started volunteering immediately in the industry association that we met in. And I felt like I needed to and I didn't know that I was feeling this, but I needed to be like an engineer, or I needed to be a STEM-minded person, which is not who I am. And it was so far away from me and most of the members of my family, and Lynzie was just so, so similar to me, and it was the part of me that I wasn't showing, right? And I felt like, I was like, oh, well, she's a badass. She's amazing. And and she made me feel comfortable, but also extremely uncomfortable because she was better at everything than I was. and she was already being herself. And I was like, how do I get to that point? And I just immediately fell in love with her. We started Google stalking each other,
100%. I'm like, who is this other person?
Now we're actually getting into the story. So now that I've answered the question, so yeah,
This is like couples therapy. I thought we were coming in for like some plastic talk, but
we'll get there.
It was all relationship.
I love it.
So I came into the industry about 5 years ago, and I mean I literally did not take a single STEM class in college. Not a single one.
What were your grades in college?
What's that?
What were your grades in college?
We didn't have them. Well, technically we did because okay, I went to Sarah Lawrence College, and you don't actually get grades. You get like a written
Get a smiley face?
Feedback from your no, you get a detailed written report from your professor. Because I mean back when I was going there, it was like six students per professor there.
Wow.
And and I loved it. It's but you did actually get grades, but you didn't know them. You had to go to the registrar like between some like weird hours and like 1 or 2 days a week. So I only found out my grades when I was applying for grad school, and I was like, oh wow, I got straight A's like my senior year. That's like wow.
Nice.
Okay.
Well, I'm in engineering, and they're like, here's your rank. If you want to do better, improve your numbers. If you want to. It is all formula based. It is all number based.
Yeah.
Did you have to beat out Chinese and Indian dudes in the engineering field? Is that
didn't. Well, we were engineering technology, and there was like 30 some of us.
Yeah.
So it was a smaller group, and like plastics isn't as
well, but Lowell is probably more diverse.
Lowell does because it's plastics engineering. Plastics engineering technology attracts a smaller group because you are limited by like sometimes which companies or which grad schools will take you. But the plastics engineering technology is more of a hands-on approach. So not as many people realize that. And if you look just at like, if you're looking plastics engineering technology, people tend to drift towards, especially academic students.
Yeah.
Plastics engineering technology gets all the dummies. You get more of the academic students in the engineering because you can go to NASA. You can go. Honestly, the only reason I've ever really heard is grad schools and NASA. I didn't think NASA would be accepting me. And I would like to say one of the kids in my class actually does work for NASA, designing metallic polymers for their Mars missions.
Oh, I should talk to that person, actually.
I'll give you his name, Rocky Vigiano.
You know a guy.
I know a guy at NASA, it's fine.
Wait, so then is there some giant population of engineers that are trying to get into NASA and then don't? And so like 1 out of 30 or something, or 1 out of 100 people get into NASA, but that's what everybody's shooting for? Is there a weird game that way?
I mean, I'm sure people are trying for it, but I think like I never intended to go into engineering, so I really don't know if there are a bunch of nerds trying to get into NASA.
What do you mean you never intended to go into engineering? That was like your whole dream was plastics engineer.
No.
I thought this was a PE class.
You
Signed up for volleyball. Next thing you know, calculus.
Lynzie, I feel like you've told your story before, and you said like you always knew you wanted to be a plastics engineer.
No.
Since you were 8?
No, you've literally said that. Like you.
No, I knew it as of the end of high school. I knew it like going into college.
Okay.
That's where I knew it. But my intention prior to my senior year was not. I was going to be history or musician. But then I was a cheerleader, and I had, the old cheerleading accident, and I had
pregnancy?
a couple of surgeries on my wrist.
Oh, sorry.
And so I couldn't.
You were clapping too aggressively, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
The clapping and the nodding.
Well, I was doing a basket toss where you toss a girl up in the air, and on the way up, I felt something go. And so a couple surgeries later, I can't play as long, which wouldn't be conducive to being a professional musician. So I thought about history, but then I I had taken like my high school somehow had like a really small tabletop injection molding machine. And I was like,
Oh.
can't do anything with that. And
I want one. I want one for like
right?
the, home,
It was
the house.
big.
Yeah.
And we made little screwdrivers, but you actually had to hold the insert in. So, and I like kind of like stumbled back on that, and I was like, I wonder if you could do something. And I took this like, I think it was like Fast Web or something like that, and it was like plastics engineering, and I was like, oh, that's real. And I realized it was just down in Erie, and I was living just south of Buffalo, and I'm like, well, that's not too far away. And
That's what I was going to ask. Was your original dream to be a cheerleader for the Buffalo Bills? Is that what they're called?
Yes.
They're actually called the Buffalo Jills.
The cheerleaders are called the Jills?
They are, yeah, in Buffalo. I didn't think that I would be in that ballpark. So, and they're more like dancers. That's usually where their history comes from. And I'm not a dancer. I mean,
I've tried to do it like a dance off with you, and you just like she just doesn't.
I go straight to the bar.
Yeah. Which works for me too. I like to competitively drink with you.
That's where my best moves are.
Yeah, but cheerleading's weird because you can go into college and be a cheerleader and go to competitive cheerleading, like nationwide competitions, right? And
Oh,
then,
yeah.
But does anything happen after that, or can you get a scholarship on cheerleading, or?
You can get a scholarship because they can get really competitive. Who's the show on Netflix? I think it was called Cheer.
Okay.
It was about like some Texas school. I don't know. I watched it at the beginning of the pandemic. My memories are all just blocked from back then.
Yeah.
And they're like super intense, but like you got to be able to do like the gymnastics aspect of it, and you know it's a whole thing. And I mean, in college, do I really want to be getting up and like exercising, or do I want to be hungover and taking day naps?
No, but what I mean is like that. The culmination of that is like national champ, right? And then there's no career or anything you can go to after that.
Yeah, I think I think at that point you can go to the NFL, but like even that,
I've heard it doesn't pay well.
It doesn't. Some you don't get paid at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're kind of like, you're kind of aging yourself out if you go to school first.
Oh, wow.
They don't really, if you're like 27, they're like, you old bitch.
Shouldn't be dancing around like this.
Right.
Okay. No, it's just weird to me. That and lacrosse. Like, where do they go?
Well, my cousins. So one of my favorite in-laws, my cousin Sylvia's husband was like a big time lacrosse player, and he does video editing there, I think.
Yeah.
So that's
lacrosse career.
just natural. I think it's more about networking, right?
So I know all these lacrosse dudes is the goal.
I don't know if it's a goal. It's like it's more of a passion, right?
Yeah.
So my girlfriend Sarah, she actually, did I tell you this? I think when I first told you about her, Lindsay, I think I probably sent you a picture of like she was a figure skater all through like grade school and high school.
No, I did not know this about
Did you
Sarah.
not? Oh my God. No, this is amazing. I'm surprised that I didn't tell you. It was, well, she also probably wouldn't appreciate that I'm telling this story, and I'll share the picture with you later. But she, so like out of college, I think, like she got a job like as, it was called the Ice Crew, but the second, which is like for the Chicago Blackhawks kind of cheerleader, but also like, when they do like, I did tell you, yeah. They like brush the like ice away when they do that hockey stop and stuff.
Yeah.
Sound effects. And but the second year they did it, they were sponsored by Captain Morgan, and they were the Spice Crew.
I love that so much.
I mean, that's more fun than an accounting job in a cubicle, I guess.
That's what she does now. Not really. She's in finance. She's a finance manager. She's never gonna watch this. She's never gonna see it. She's
not that fun.
She's very supportive, but also very busy. Also, I'm not gonna be sure. Like I said too much. I've said too much. I'll send you guys the picture. Post it wherever you want. Just like video edit it right here. Boom. Spice Crew.
Really, even if she wanted to be supportive, she will never know we did this recording ever.
No,
Don't
this show
tell
could
her,
blow up.
It will.
You'll have to edit this.
Bloopers. Just put on the bloopers.
I'm going to ask
Oh,
go ahead.
oh, well, we got, of course, and I love it on this tangent, but I wanted to say like how Lynzie and I met. So
Okay. On a conference
like
call?
a deeper story. Yes. But so, you know, I had come in the industry I worked in academia. So academia is, you know, dominated by women for the most, at least, you know, okay, that's a different story. But,
Are you being sarcastic or serious?
well, I'm rethinking it, what I just said.
Okay.
So, a lot of most teachers, right, and instructors are female, and in the United States, and so I was used to being surrounded by women, and then coming into this industry, I knew, okay, it's going to be it's the opposite, and so a month after I started in the industry, our technical director had already registered for ANTEC, the annual technical conference for Society of Plastics Engineers. And it was in Indianapolis, which is just a few hours drive from Chicago. And my boss and our technical director couldn't go. He had something come up.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, Mercedes, why don't you go and be Mir Ali for a few days and just go meet people and just, you know, see what it's all about. So I was like, literally, and again, I didn't take a day of math or science, no STEM, nothing in college, and I show up and I'm gonna get way off topic. Anyway, I realized very quickly.
I was only in Indianapolis for like a night, and I know we did not meet there.
We didn't meet there. No, but I realized then it was like, okay, there are no women, but I also was like, oh, I do have value. People are interested in talking to me, and I can carry on a conversation. I can explain what I do.
Wait,
and
so
I met my goals.
did a bunch of plastic engineers try to hit on you? Was that
Not that I know about, but that's another, we can address that later.
Okay.
I'm
just imagining in a conference room full of 1,000 dudes or something.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
But I met some great, I mean, gosh, I met Kate Pellet that first day. I met lots of good people. Vicky Flaris, I met the first day. Donna Davis, I met the first day. These are people who you guys don't know. But, I mean, Donna Davis is one of, the fourth woman is about to be inducted into the Plastics Hall of Fame. But Donna Davis, when I met her, she was not in the Plastics Hall of Fame. Now she was inducted a few years ago.
Where is the Plastics Hall of Fame located?
In our hearts and our minds. Yeah.
Okay.
You say the same thing, Lynzie?
I think there's an actual.
There's a room in the back of some factory.
Maybe I don't know. Well, maybe they have actually a.
I want to say like either Syracuse or UMass Lowell holds something.
Well, because we know
I feel like Syracuse holds all the stuff for the plastics pioneers, right?
Yeah.
We know the Baseball Hall of Fame is in a very small town, right?
Which is where? Oh, fun fact. Williamsburg, Pennsylvania, right?
What? I thought it was in Cooperstown. Cooper.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking the Little League World Series.
I thought you were a super baseball fan because you had a third favorite team.
I am, but I was completely sidetracked. Yeah.
I don't have a third favorite anything.
Right?
So anyway, after getting involved, so I was like, oh, I need to get involved in Society of Plastics Engineers because I went to this conference and I met the person that I absolutely needed to meet. We were seated at the table together. Yeah. And he was like, he's like, Apex Colors, are you because my boss said, okay, just the one goal you have is just find out who's the president of Holland Colors or who's running Holland Colors right now. Yeah. So I meet him. He was the president of that company at the time for the Americas. And I meet him in this like intro first timers session, whatever. Yeah. And he's Colombian, I'm half Ecuadorian, and so we bonded over that. And then like later on, we're all sitting at the table together for dinner, and we're all going around introducing ourselves. And he's like, so I'm Jaime Gomez, I'm the president of Holland Colors for the Americas. And I was like, oh, this is specifically, I just had to find out. My one goal for my boss was like, find out who is running the company. And here I am sitting at the table with this guy, and we've already like semi-bonded.
Score.
And so it was like I was sold on SPE at that point. And I was like, I'm gonna dive in full force, like you said, Lily, like not trying to steamroll anything, but just like I know the more I put into something, the more I'm gonna get back out of it. And now coming from academia where I was always surrounded by women. I was like, oh, okay, so this is like a lot of men. And I went to Pack Expo, and there was a women's event, and I was like, hey, we should do something like this in Society of Plastics Engineers. And I said that to the managing director of SP at the time, and he said, yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I want you to run it. You be the face of it. I was like, I've been in the industry like 3-4 months, like, you know.
Oh, we need.
But so, and then, with the support of the society, like they, helped me out, and it was like put out like a call to action to our members. Anybody wants to get involved in this. And so Lynzie stepped up. So that's how we met on that conference call. And
I don't remember saying, yes, I will help. Or
they
like,
they were just like,
somehow I ended up on the call. So I don't know how that happened. I don't remember if I said yes.
It was just like an email. You probably just clicked, like, But so we were planning this event together, just over the phone, no video, but we were Google stalking each other at the time. And
wait, so this is
Lynzie, you want to tell
this is a support women in plastics?
It was, yeah. So
thing,
the
or?
idea was, yeah, it was a women's networking breakfast, and the way that we'd structured it was like have like a little bit of breakfast for like the first half hour, and round tables where everybody can network.
Honestly, I was probably sold on the breakfast part initially. And you're like,
yes, I want breakfast.
Breakfast.
And then it was like a panel of women, top women in the industry, just talking, and it was. Yeah, and so this was the 75th annual technical conference, first women's event that Society of Plastics Engineers has ever had.
Whoa, progression.
Welcome to the future.
Yeah. So then while we're doing this and while we're Google stalking each other, SPE releases their first like SPE is me, like kind of like internal marketing thing where they were doing a feature on the members, and I was one of the people to be featured. Yeah. And so Lynzie's husband, Danny, you want to take it from here, Lynzie?
Well, yeah. So, they asked me to do the SP is me thing 2 months after you, 3 months after you, something like that.
Yeah.
And, there's kind of this like parallel where like Mercedes will do something and then I'll do it, or like I'll do something and then Mercedes will do it. Yeah. And my husband kind of made a comment. He's like, she's like you, but like a little bit better. And I was like, she's kind of your nemesis. She is.
And that's the best piece of, I mean, we call each other nemesis. I think we call each other like best friends in the industry more now. Yeah. Unfortunately, we should get back on that nemesis.
We should get back on the nemesis. I try to, but then I forget.
It's like get yourself a nemesis, because it's like Superman and Lex Luthor. You make each other stronger, right?
Well, I always say it's like Professor X and Magneto. I prefer that relationship. But
I know a little bit less about that, but yeah.
Well, you couldn't pick a plastic superhero? Isn't there a plastic man?
There is. Russ Broom, the former managing director. I'll bring it. Should I bring it? I did put on pants for this. That was it. Like the whole thing I was texting Lynzie. I'm very hungover, so I'll be right back. Lynzie, take it. I'm saying
I don't know what happened there, but we've spurred some action.
You asked about some figurine superhero thing.
Plastic Man, yeah.
She's actually not getting it. She's going to the bathroom.
No, I'm not. These pants. I'm wearing my Oaxaca pants. These are a whole situation to undo. I would have muted my audio. Come on, I'm not new here.
Yeah.
Just the same.
Yeah, he stretches. Although
it's kind of a lame. I mean, I guess it works. I mean,
he has an extendable neck.
Should have been Rubber Man. And whoever wrote this comic had a poor understanding of the material properties of plastic. Oh. I mean, would you say plastic is stretchy? Generally not, right?
Some can be.
Yeah.
Elastomers.
Yeah.
Silicone.
Yeah. Thermoplastic elastomers. Yeah.
Oh, well, shut my mouth.
I always get nervous when we do like our half-hour interviews, so I don't know how you guys, do that without wanting to poop yourself?
No. Yeah, 3 hours. I try to think of it as a conversation where I'm learning about the guest. So it's actually, to me, it's a win-win. The more comfortable the guest is, the more they open up. And if they have stories in their careers, it's a win-win. For me, I love learning about people's careers. So 3 hours to me is I don't think I really get nervous at all.
See, I feel like I sit there and I think, ask something smart, and then my head is like, I shut down, and that's all I think. And then I'm like, you like toast?
I'm just stopping myself from asking dildo questions. Are they injection molded? Is it rubber? Is it plastic?
Yes. It's thermoplastic, elastomer, or silicone.
Yeah, fun. Lynzie has a great story about that. Actually, I've had the audio going the whole time.
Which story though?
It was a long, it was a long pee to begin with, but I also got these pants. They're, I think, from Michoacan. It's like a whole situation where it's like it's a tie in the back. Anyway,
it's styling pants.
It's a new type of pant.
It's like Indiana Jones pants.
Yeah, he should be so lucky. He should be so lucky. But Lynzie, why don't you tell your dildo story, sex toy story?
Which one?
Oh, here's fun fact about. Okay, so I'll first tell my tampon story, and then you tell your dildo story.
Perfect.
Oh, cow!
You're like, is this what you guys wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I was stopping myself from going here. Yeah.
So there's a big industry event called Pack Expo.
PlastChicks,
all about packaging.
Okay.
And it takes place here in Chicago. Switches off between here and Las Vegas. Actually, I highly recommend attending.
Is it hard to infiltrate? Can I just buy somebody's badge and get in there, or how does that?
Yeah, just get one from the trash. Yeah. Again, you shouldn't be throwing it away. You shouldn't be throwing it away.
You're recycling those badges.
Yeah.
Yeah, reuse. But I did that with a liquor expo once. If you remember it, Lynzie, I forget what it was. And then I gave the badge to Scott Marco. Anyway, we drank it up.
Nice.
So
tampons.
So tampons. So I'm talking to a guy and not everybody at Pack Expo works in plastics, but we introduce ourselves during a social hour where there's free beer and everything, and he's like, oh yeah, like plastics, yes I do, oh yeah, and he's like, I have, I was a longtime member of SPE, the Society of Plastics Engineers, and it's like, oh great, like this person, and then he's like, I actually he's an older guy, and he's like, I actually have 30 patents in plastics. I was like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
I think that I'm on the road to getting a patent maybe, but
Sweet.
Which I never thought. Again, never a day of
I was on a patent application as an intern, but it never went through.
Closer than any of us on this end, so you're good.
I feel like I want to know about you guys, but let me finish the story first. And then Lynzie has to finish her. I'm going to finish the tampon story, then Lindsay's going to tell the story. Then I want to learn about you guys.
Add-on usually, I think.
Oh yes, you do have it segues very well.
We've got a whole itinerary of conversation.
So
here.
listen, this guy and I were talking, and he's like, oh, but he was too embarrassed to tell me what his patents were in. It wasn't. I was like,
yeah.
It wasn't like he couldn't tell me.
Uh-huh.
He was like, well, and bear in mind, this was we're on the end of the night, 5 p.m. second free beer. Cool. We loosened up, and then he finally lets out okay, it was for tampons.
Yeah.
It was the applicator for tampons.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, this dude can't even say the word tampon without whispering after 2 beers. To a woman,
Wait, were all of his patents tampon related? 26 of them? Okay.
I'm not going to say what company you work for, but it's the big one. If you think of the other word that we use for tampons,
when you guys think of tampons,
what do you guys think?
Well,
every woman listening.
That's part of the problem. I think that's part of his embarrassment is that to admit that he has 30 tampon patents, it admits that he's spending some gigantic hours of his life thinking about female genitalia and the operations therein, the activities that.
Well, and
it's a little bit perverted.
The best thing was like, what Lynzie said immediately after was like, I was like, isn't that fucked up that he was like so embarrassed to say that he had 30 patents and tampons, and Lynzie was like immediately.
Well, so I'm good friends with a lot of
Just say the joke. But say the joke. Do you remember what you said?
Oh, Jerry.
It was the best joke ever. No,
I say a lot of stuff.
You were immediately like, and this was like actually I think in person or maybe it was over the phone. I don't know, but you were immediately like, oh, so the 30 patents on this trade name are by a man. No wonder they're so uncomfortable. Like,
Yes.
you know.
Well,
and now the dildo story.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. And it's part of the problem that like women in this industry, like if you really want to set me off on a rant,
Yeah.
you know, why we need more diversity of thought and more diversity of people is because there are products being designed for large sections of people that are being designed by someone who has no personal use with them.
Right. Well, you did a tampon applicator too, didn't you?
I didn't, but one of the professors at Penn State was working with a group, and she was talking to them, and they were talking about a material for a tampon applicator, and the guy said, well, you know, it's got to withstand a certain temperature and humidity, and you know, all these variables.
A harsh environment.
And she's like, why? And they're like, well, you know, it stays there, and she's like, guys,
The applicator.
It's applicator. It is used quickly once, and then could be recycled, but is thrown away.
It has to withstand these harsh.
Recycle the applicator.
Yeah, we should.
Rinse it off.
You should be. It is a very, very easy material to recycle, and it is not being impeded by any other materials. Like
well, actually, to contradict you, Lynzie, which is like pearlescence and metallics that are used. So on the color side, I'm like, okay, I'm the devil. Like, and also like, how do you feel when you're? This is from the design side. How do you feel like when you unwrap a tampon and the applicator isn't pearlescent? You're like, what the fuck is this, right? It feels less fancy. Like even though we're in the industry.
So you're saying making them prettier makes them less recyclable? Is that what's happening?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, but typically the
long and short of it.
Oh, I mean, do you want it to be more slidey, just slippy? Well, so here, look, most dudes never pick up a tampon, right? We never unwrap one. The closest thing
that's going here. Like,
no. The closest thing
That's
is like,
amazing.
can you grab it out of the glove compartment for me? Okay, I'll get it for you. But we don't have an actual experience with this product. You know, you see a commercial and it's some butterflies and stuff, but it's not.
Have you seen the
blue
TikTok
water.
videos going around of women showing their boyfriends how to tampon works?
No, we don't watch that gross stuff.
They put them in a water bottle and then they let them expand and they try and pull it out. And the guys are just like,
Okay. We need to go watch this now for our education.
yeah, you have some.
Okay.
But the same to your question again. I like to answer.
Answer the damn question.
About if you make it prettier, can it be recycled? So just like some plastics won't bond with other plastics, there are some additives that make, and some color that makes plastics harder to recycle or can contaminate them.
It's still recyclable. It's just you're not recycling it with its other friends that were easily recyclable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like you have these polypropylene like food containers and things that are thermoformed, like your takeout stuff.
Yeah.
With the living hinge, which was one of my favorite things. That's like how I identified polypropylene in the beginning.
It is the easy one.
Did you say a living hinge?
Lynzie can talk more about this because I learned a new thing from you about this the other day when we were talking about the closure, the top that like broke off immediately.
And I said, give Lynzie a lot of credit, and then she looks at you like she's lost.
Well, here's the
I just say stuff. I don't pay attention.
Here's the great thing about a 3-hour interview is, man, Lynzie, like you are blowing my mind with some of your technical knowledge, and I know for a fact we've talked about this, that like sometimes I'll try to get you to spout some of your technical knowledge in one of our interviews with like somebody else, and she freezes up.
All right.
And it's like even if it's just you and me talking, and like for when we were doing quarantinis, we were doing like an Instagram live thing like during like the first couple months of the lockdown.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, very low risk. Like they're like 5 to.
I wish we had known you all during quarantine. That would have been a fun Zoom call.
It would have been a good one.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind, Lynzie, because like you have taught me so much. She would do the gift consulting. Like the injection molder would be like not working, or like not the chip that I was shooting wouldn't be the size I wanted to be, and she'd just like, oh, do this, and then she'd like do a Britney Spears GIF or whatever, like, and like, it was like, oh, okay, I get it.
If you
like,
can't teach through GIFs, then why are you even bothering?
Right. Just hit it, baby, one more time.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And like, and yet like sometimes it, like you just freeze up. So I don't know what that's about.
Well, that is a therapy session right there.
I mean,
but part of it is also being like a woman in the industry. Like Lynzie has gotten mistaken for a secretary.
I've been mistaken for a secretary. I've been mistaken for my favorite, I think.
Mistaken for a secretary at the company where there were 2 plastics engineers, the owner and her.
And my favorite is when I'm mistaken for a wife of someone, because it is insulting.
Yeah.
And like, why the fuck would the wife be here? Like,
to cover.
Right. Like, why is the wife in this like technical meeting? If I was the wife, like if I was the wife and an engineer, sure. But
I mean, ironically, you just told us you're sitting in your husband's seat right now, his desk at home.
He is not an engineer.
And he commits fully to her career, and she's like the breadwinner.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I am.
He's winning bread too.
Yeah.
Or ham loaves.
Yeah. So in Lindsay's defense, I think there is a little bit of stage fright when you know there's an audience, right? When you know people are watching, when there's pressure to give an answer and people are looking to you for expertise.
And, I don't want to like say the blanket statement of like all men mansplain, because that's a pretty disrespectful statement, because especially like at my last job, Brock Allen, the owner of Tech Tank, he was very supportive, probably the most like outwardly supportive of people, of me. We'd be in meetings and they'd be like, well, how much material do you want? And he would be like, ask Lynzie, I don't care, whatever she says. Yeah. And I've had people support me. That's not to say there haven't been other companies that have supported me or anything like that. Like I've been very fortunate in my life for the most part. And the people that I didn't get that support from, they have a list. I mean, like your plastics godfather, my plastics godfather, right? Yeah, we have
John Beaumont, Glenn Beal.
John Beaumont was one of my professors.
These guys are both in the Plastics Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
and they're both very big names in the plastics
name
industry.
droppers.
And, like, we are.
but these are the guys that we're not like dropping. I mean, we are dropping.
You're shouting out praise to thank them. Yeah,
but also
because they guide us and help us so much. Like they follow our careers and they're like, hey kid, like you got this. Like
I've been talking to customers who've been like, you can tell they're just on the fence about what I'm telling them their next moves need to be, or what this design needs to be, or whatever. And I'll be like, well, when I worked with, and I'm very outward with John. John and I are still very close. My kids call him Papa John. So
pizza.
And geographically, he's just down the street too. I was like, when I visited, I was like, we should ding dong ditch him. Like
we could. But like if I drop the fact that I worked for him or that I know him, people give me more respect, which is bullshit. Like he trusted me enough, so people trust me through association by him. But it's like I also have 13 years in the industry. I say dumb stuff and maybe I don't remember everything I'm saying, but eventually that brain kicks in, and I am very capable in my job. I don't think I've ever
plus you knew the answer to the polystyrene quiz question.
Yes, always.
Meanwhile, when Lynzie and I did like our Plastic Chicks interview, did I just say PlastChicks? PlastChicks interview. Shoot, PlastChicks interview with John Beaumont.
Yeah.
he asked like at what temperature water boils, and I froze up. Like again,
It's boiling temperature.
and I was like, and then like a minute later or something, I was like, is it 100?
No. 212?
Fahrenheit, 100
Yeah.
C.
Oh yeah. I only do Fahrenheit, sorry.
But it's like you just freeze up, you know.
Yeah, well,
No, freezing's a
but I mean,
different
like-
temperature.
But like men in our industry, like they've been the most supportive. Oh my God. I mean, listen, Russell Broom, who was the one who was like, when I said, approached him, the former managing director of Society of Plastics Engineers,
Yeah.
when I approached him, he was like, okay, yeah, you should do the women's event and you should lead it and you should be the face of it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know shit. Like it should be Donna Davis, who's now in the plastics. I'm like, it should be this person, that person. He's like, no,
Yeah.
you should do it.
Yeah.
And John Ratzliff is another one where it's like,
I love that man.
he'll be like in a different continent entirely. And you text him like, hey, I'm going through a work thing. Can we talk and guide me through? He's like, yeah, I'm in between flights in Bali right now.
He is like super high up at his company, and like constantly traveling, and
which
yet
is a massive company, huge.
like
company.
it is a big name in the industry. I don't think
Both of those guys
say
are
it.
former presidents of Society of Plastics
Yeah,
Engineers. Can we
so we
say it?
won't- I
Can we
don't
say
know.
it?
Okay.
Google John Ratzliff, you'll find him.
I think Lynzie is great. If you're ever stage fright or anything, I would recommend taking on a persona. Like take on a character of like,
Can I use the Muppet voice?
yeah, like be a cocky, like I know shit about plastic. This is what I do.
And you know, honestly, I'm much better than where I was, but
Yeah.
you know, it's hard sometimes because you think like
Yeah.
somebody's gonna, you know, explain to me why I'm not right. And
Mm.
that almost never happens. And if it does, it's usually by somebody who doesn't know as much and is trying to prove that they know more and they really don't. And I can be like, no.
So you're waiting for an
Well,
attack that never comes.
Well, it does come. It constantly comes though. Like
Ah.
in a kind of like low key way. Like,
Ah.
do you remember, Lynzie, you telling me about? I think we were at the golf outing, the Erie, Pennsylvania Society of Plastics Engineers golf outing, which takes place in New York. Very confusing to me.
Tri-state area, get over it.
It's better restaurants over there.
I don't know that. I mean, there's a lot of ham loaf that goes on over there, but
So much homework.
you told me that there was like an alumnus, right, from Penn State Barron, I think, who then was explaining to you what injection molding was, or what, like it was something like.
I know this is going to go along with my story, but I don't remember exactly because I've had these things happen to me multiple times. So
okay.
it's not like it's one specific time. It's like,
Yeah.
which story are you referring to? Because I have several.
Which asshole are you
Yeah.
referring to?
Yeah. But then you get people like Donna Davis, right, who is now retired, but she worked at, we can say her company because she's retired, right? She, and this is actually a great story. Like she worked at ExxonMobil for 40 plus years, was only with one company, which is
Yeah.
rare these days.
Mhm.
She came up for a position like to move up, and she applied, like the position was in Saudi Arabia.
Mm.
And she's this little, like, 5'0" woman
Yeah.
from
Mhm.
With a big
Texas,
Southern drawl.
always wearing heels. Oil, she calls it oil, and I'm like, what is it? Oil, right?
Oh.
Oil. And she applies for the position, and they're like, well, I don't think that you would fit this role because you're wearing a skirt, like, and you can't do that in Saudi Arabia. And she was like, oh, like I didn't even know, like.
Yeah.
Because when I had reached out to her as like who would be a good speaker for this event, and she's like, I don't know, because I don't think of people in terms of women or men. Now that being said,
Yeah.
go back 40 plus years when she was hired at ExxonMobil in her department,
Yeah.
Hidden Figures style, there was no bathroom for her.
Mm.
They had to build her own bathroom.
Yeah.
And this is like a mentor of ours, and it's crazy to think that like not that long ago.
Yeah.
Like-
If you go back in the decades, it's more recent that women are seeing equality and equal stature, and as you're explaining, not often, not always, right? Not.
And it's funny because we talk about the Society of Plastics Engineers a lot because obviously they sponsor our podcast and we're both very active in it.
And gosh, they're taking a great turn now with the diversity, equity, inclusion, like advisory board, and even like doing like they're asking for presenters to do the I don't know if this was your idea, Lynzie. Lindsay's done a ton of stuff that I'm jealous of at the executive level there. That's actually, yeah. Oh, what I admire most about her, but it didn't come to fruition because the event was canceled. Yes. Back to answering the question. Lynzie got, and the event again didn't happen because of COVID.
Yeah.
Because it was going to be in March, 2020. But she got complimentary childcare at our annual technical conference,
which is huge because it's not just a benefit to women who are at the conference, but there are young, men or, well, I guess not older men because your kids are older too.
They're busy chasing bimbos.
But to your point, Lynzie, did you watch that video that I showed you earlier, or that I was like urgent? Watch this.
Oh, I didn't see the urgent part.
Oops.
It was just like a last fuckable day with Amy Schumer and Julie Louis-Dreyfus and
I have
Tina Fey, and
I've seen that video before.
Yeah, good
Julie
stuff.
Louis-Dreyfus.
Well, yeah, which is like I highly recommend this Amy Schumer show video. But she stumbles upon this her idols, right? Like it's Patricia Arquette, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, and Tina Fey. Just like she's like hiking and she stumbles upon them like at a lake, and like they're have this like champagne and stuff like that, and they're like, oh my god, you guys are amazing, like, and they were like, oh, are you the one who makes all the jokes about her pussy and stuff like that? She's like, oh yes, like that's me, thank you. Yeah. And they're like, oh, come make jokes about your pussy at our table, and like and then what are you guys, is it somebody's birthday? And they're like, no, the opposite, like we're celebrating Julia's last fuckable day. Like in the industry, like they decide, she's like, do they tell you? It's like, no, you just kind of learn, like, and then she asks a question, well, so do men have like a later, like last fuckable day? I said, no, they don't. Like it's just like for men, like, it's like, I think the great example was like, oh yeah, Sally Field, remember when she played like Tom Hanks's girlfriend in this movie, and then like 2 months later she was like his mom in Forrest Gump.
I see, yeah.
And I forget why I got on this, but like
we were way off. I think we started at PAC Expo in Chicago, and I don't know where we ended up.
And tampons. Lynzie, tell your dildo story. Perfect time for your dildo.
Again, I have many of them, so I don't know which one you're referring to.
The one when you were working on a project.
Well, the one
that's like all we ever do.
All plastic stuff.
So my first job, I actually
it wasn't maybe it wasn't a dildo, but I know it was a sex toy.
Yeah, so the first job I had, we did a lot of elastomers, and so one of the projects we were looking at was actually like the plastic that feels like rubber. Yes, so like soft. And we were looking at I think they called it a penis enhancer. It went over. And that was the shape. So
like if I have a normal size penis, I can put a large size penis over my penis,
like a penis mask. And so
but not like that you would exfoliate it, but like
no, not exfoliation.
That's clay, that's a different material.
And so I had to go to our material supplier and say like, okay, this is kind of material I need. This is what like I need its like, properties to be, and I need it to be FDA approved, and I need it to be, all this stuff.
Because that does spend more time than a tampon. Okay.
And
moving on.
At temperature.
And so I got the material quoted, whatever. Fast forward 9-10 years, I'm in this meeting, and this guy, he's like, oh, I used to work for this other material company, and I was like, that sounds really familiar. And he goes, yeah, didn't I quote material for a dildo for you? I'm like, you did. I'm glad you remember that. Good. I'm glad that's how you
Run
remember.
into old friends. Yeah.
This wasn't the dildo story that I was remembering, but you work on a lot of projects. Like,
in college, because like that's the joke. It's always like, oh, the girl's gonna go work in sex toys, and it's like, why would I want to work in sex toys? I think all you guys want to work in sex toys. Like, I'm fine.
Yeah, men definitely want to work in sex toys. Yeah.
And
well, actually, that
my first project ended up being a sex toy, and I'm like,
Damn it.
So there's this woman, T. Chang, who's like huge influencer in industrial design right now. She's on the West Coast, and she is, I mean, she had started this like women in industrial design group. And listen, women in industrial design have it worse than like the ratio is worse than women in plastics engineering. Actually, if you look at, Lindsay taught me this, like the of all the fields of engineering, most, the highest percentage of those fields for women is plastics engineering. Lowest is
We're the coolest.
what's that?
Those were the
Yes.
coolest.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, we are easily. But then computer and software engineering, right? I think is the lowest percentage of.
I think so.
This guy's a
But
software engineer.
Software, electrical.
and this is okay. We're gonna get. I want to learn about you guys. We want to learn about you guys. But
He wishes there was a lot more women in software engineering.
Yeah.
Everybody
well,
does.
actually, one of my like very like closest to my heart mentors is in software engineering, cloud computing.
Yay.
And she's a relative of mine, and she hadn't been a mentor until I was then suddenly in this field where I'm surrounded by men.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, you are the only person at your company who doesn't have a PhD and or is not ex-military, you know, and she's the only woman like in her department. Like, so then she immediately, it was like, I need to talk to you all the time. Like, you know,
Nice.
but I forget what I feel like I was making a very important point. Oh, there are even fewer women in industrial design.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us a dildo story that Lindsay couldn't remember.
Well, this is a sex toy story, and this is important that it's a sex toy story. It's not a dildo story.
Wait, what other sex toys?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. That's the problem,
Okay.
right? So if you think about all the products that we make,
I got one.
So we're just engineers. We are the people in the middle who are figuring out how to make it,
Yes.
and maybe we can use a material that's more comfortable for women, but ultimately, you look at like where the creation of the product starts, right? And the majority of people who are designing products are men, including sex toys, right?
I'm not surprised by that. Yeah.
How many women were involved in the production process of making the sex toy that you did, Lindsay? You?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
You know,
That sounded
and so-
like an indictment.
so-
I don't know.
No, it's like it's reinforcement, like because like you know, so T Chang is like becoming a lot more visible now, and she's speaking out a lot, because her company is called
Butt Plugs International? No, this is industrial design.
CPF.
Okay, sorry.
well, no,
I started thinking about butt
actually,
plugs and I couldn't stop.
It's called. Is it called? I'll have to look it up because she is so important to design right now that I don't want to.
Wait,
like,
what
even
is
misspell her company?
What is industrial
Underwater
design?
again.
Is that
Anything like your microphone that you're speaking into, both microphones, your table, your coffee mug, they ideate it. Yeah, they ideate the product. Your headphones, they're the ones who actually design it. They start at the sketch. They're like, so there's so few women involved in that. It's actually a little bit less than women in plastics engineering.
So our coffee mugs are very sexist.
So sad.
I have another industrial designer I want to tell you about who does coffee mugs. He's a male, but he's amazing. No, well, our coffee mugs are exclusionary because, like, if you think of like people who have, there are a lot of people who can't use their hands very well.
Yeah.
Or who don't have a hand. So this other guy I know, he has this beautiful mug that you can. It'll make you cry just like going to the Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, because how happy these people who just have one hand are able to like then hold a mug and do all their typing, like, and drink their coffee while they're typing. Like it's gorgeous. But back to T Chang. She makes vibrators. And she said, most women, experience orgasm not from internal penetration, and that's what that's the whole thing about dildos. It's like
Yeah.
Lynzie, like I'm okay, Lynzie, like straight up, like if you have like no, like why like a dildo, like they're like
Yes.
so and she makes it out of the most beautiful products, and it's a necklace because it's a statement too.
Oh.
And you see, and so I'll look it up. Lynzie,
I
you
have
answer the
got
next
confused
question.
because I cannot picture in my head a vibrator on a necklace and being like, beautiful.
No, it's gorgeous, and celebrities wear it out and about because she's in San Francisco.
Now I have to see.
Yeah.
Again, she is such an important person.
Vibrator
Because
necklace.
because that's the thing. It's like if you think of all these sex toys for women
Yeah.
made by men.
Right.
Yeah. No, like no bullshit. That sounds wonderful. I'm all for that. That sounds great.
Oh, like listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I would love to see women everywhere wearing vibrators on their necks out in public.
Yeah, it's and she'll get like teary eyed and post it on her Instagram like when she sees there are people who and it's beautiful and it's subtle and it's gorgeous and it's like fuck you, here I am.
Yeah.
But like men don't recognize what it is. But her company is called Crave, and her Instagram is @lovecrave. And I mean that's just a little example. If you think about.
But I think it also destigmatizes sexuality, right? In America, we have a lot of hang-ups and weird behaviors, social pressures around sexuality, and so I think that's cool to have that at the forefront.
Yeah, yeah. And that was and initially that was the most. People thought that was the most important part of her work.
Yeah.
But really, what I'm seeing is the most important part of her work is like, okay, then she's making these very effective sex toys for women, designed by women.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about, like, for example, in the medical field, go to a doctor's office. What's the height of the counter, right? Like, what is like all of the medical devices majority of medical devices are designed by men and operated by women.
Oh, I see.
Right. If you think about like the
I thought you were about to complain about OBGYNs or about gynecologists.
I've had excellent ones. Like, listen, both of us are moms. Like, I will,
Okay.
Familiarity.
Yeah.
You're doing okay?
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, the doctors aren't the ones designing the instruments.
Yeah.
Like, but they like if you think about like, I think that I was thinking about this before because both of my parents are left-handed. And I'm right-handed. Most people are right-handed, but in my house we always had left-handed scissors because it was a cute thing. Like, when my parents were together, it was like we always had left-handed scissors. And I experienced this issue that most left-handers go through when they're trying to use a pair of. Are either of you left-handed?
No. That's wrong.
Right. It's something that you don't even think about, but it's like fucking impossible to use a pair of.
Is it the shape of the holes or?
But it's and like, I mean, it's
yeah.
It's contoured and it's like, and then you have to like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right. And so my parents had left-handed scissors and that's just a very small example, but it's the same concept.
Yeah.
So if you think like, that's why I say the height of the counter, like the place where I would go to see my OBGYN, I could barely see the receptionist, right?
Oh, I see.
Because the chair wasn't tall enough, the counter was way too tall, right? And little things like that, and or even like with the blood pressure, like there are a million different things you don't think about in the day to day.
Yeah, like all our nurses are Filipino now, so it should be even less tall.
Yeah. Oh my God, those Filipinos. And Salamat. Are you guys? No. Oh, that's why I wanted to ask you. No, you guys are Vietnamese, yeah? Or at least I know that, Liem, you are.
Yeah, I'm Vietnamese. Emmett's half Vietnamese.
Half Vietnamese, yep.
Are you half Filipino?
No, half Irish American from Chicago.
Oh, right on. Same. I'm not from Chicago, but my mom, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I was Filipino. They're great singers.
Really good at karaoke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the Vietnamese, they do a lot of karaoke. Actually, just our family doesn't.
I wouldn't put them up against the Filipinos in a contest though.
So Liem, I'm so flattered that you wanted to talk to us, and I really want to learn more about you. So
how many patents do you have?
I'm I'm about 20 years into software engineering and a 20 years in the career of software engineering. Podcasting kind of just called out to me because watching things like Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, some of those when I watch those and listen to them, I feel like it resonates with me where you're teaching people and or you're resonating, or you're getting resonation. When you listen to people's stories.
Generative design.
What was that?
Is this generative design all over again?
yeah, exactly.
So, let's not speak of it. Let's not.
You're on
let's
their
edit that
vibe.
out.
So when people share their stories about how they're either helping humanity, how they're helping others, innovations in their careers, and it doesn't have to be helping people, but just being passionate about something, sharing a story, motivation. That was where this podcast came from, really. So taking, I guess, the software engineering side that got, I would say people that want to start a podcast, you gotta, I think I've boiled it down to, I would suggest 5 things. You probably either want to be a programmer, you want to either be in photography.
Okay, so let's slow down because I'm going to take some notes here.
You should start your programming career now.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
You either want to be a programmer or something in IT. The second one is a photographer. The third one is a video editor. And then I forget the next 2 I wrote down. But the reason why I suggest that is because podcasting or any type of YouTube work, you're going to be dealing with that stuff. You're going to deal with YouTube's algorithm. You're going to deal with maybe programming a website. You're going to deal with integrations between Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. So you got to be a little bit technical.
Maybe SEO was one?
Yeah, that's going to be in there too. So if you could at least, you don't have to, this is just my suggestion, that you be involved in one of those because you're going to dive deep into those things. Video photography, like I didn't know anything a year ago with the lighting, ISO, aperture. I didn't know anything. Like even right now, I still feel like an amateur with it. But if
compare yourself to us, you'll feel a lot better.
maybe recording industry was probably one of them. Like
exactly.
Which was and here I am, like I left my microphone and Lynzie hasn't used hers in 2 years since.
You guys are relying on your natural talent.
Since we interviewed John Beaumont, probably that was maybe the last time.
Probably the last time, yeah.
Or Brock, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, but so
the fourth.
I think that. Go ahead.
The fourth one would be just made of money. If you're made of money, you could probably buy equipment, buy people, you could buy.
Oh, it's the best talent.
Yeah. So that's if you're made of money, this podcasting thing, video podcasting is a lot easier.
Over 4, got it.
Yeah. So, but I would suggest at least one of the other 3 because it's daunting to do video editing, trying to do audio mastering. I absolutely suck on that. Trying to do color grading, I suck on that, but I've gotten through, and I think my podcast looks pretty damn good for not knowing any of that a year ago. So that's what I would suggest, knowing those 3 or one.
It's itself headquarters that does any of those things for you, and then you can just be ignorant and you it.
Yeah, like they're happy that we create content, and they're like, yeah, we'll splice this together, whatever. But so Liem, I think that as with like engineers, like regardless of the field, and I say this as a semi-engineer now who's not, I'm basically a chemist now. I'm basically
an honorary title.
I said that to the guy, like the great grandson of the guy who invented Bakelite on our interview the other day. He was like, "Oh, so you guys chemists?" Knowing that his great grandfather was a chemist, the guy who invented the first plastic. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm basically a chemist now. I mean, I work with pigment chemistry, like all the yeah, basically, yeah."
Yeah.
But I think that the stereotype of pretty much anybody in STEM is that they are more introverted and antisocial, and podcasting and especially having a 3-hour session, right? Mm-hmm. So do you feel that stereotype is true? Do you feel like other people, especially in software engineering, I feel like where you're looking at, I mean, now when we're looking at a screen all day, we're usually using Zoom and communicating with people, but like, I feel like especially the software engineer stereotype was antisocial.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
So do you feel like you're different, or do you feel like?
Yeah, I was definitely, I would consider myself more of an extrovert. I have probably the introvert feature as I get older on, during this COVID thing really tested my introvertness, which I was able to stay indoors a lot and it didn't bother me. Maybe my window to the outside world was the internet. And so maybe my outrovert was able to use the internet for what I wanted, what I needed to talk to people. Now starting a podcast as an introvert, I oddly see different YouTube formats where there's a lot of introverts doing YouTube actually. Now, podcast is different. Podcast where conversation, maybe I think that needs an extrovert, but
or get yourself an extrovert co-host.
Yeah.
In my case.
Yeah, well, kind of Emmett has, he's able to throw in a lot more jokes and a lot more.
I haven't said anything in 4 minutes.
he has a lot of wide.
Good joke. That was a good joke. That was a good. Solid joke.
He has a wide range of knowledge where I've kind of dived deeper, I think, into either software engineering or anything technical I dove into, where my lack of knowledge is definitely pop culture, probably geopolitical things, history. I stayed away from all that stuff. And that's when I have a conversation with you guys, that's where I hope to rely on Emmett when he brings those things to the table. But I would say I'm a lot more extroverted than the typical software engineer. I think one of my coworkers, Oscar, who I've interviewed here on this podcast, he is a software engineer, and he kind of said to me like, "Hey, you're much more extroverted than any other programmer I've worked with." So yeah,
out there, man.
Yeah, I remember actually. I'll try to make the story quick. I think it's a maybe boring story, but my first.
We'll go on a tangent within it too, and we're gonna make it like this is gonna go. I hope you guys have time saved like for after this, because like we're gonna go on long.
Okay.
We're not gonna hit the time.
The first few years as a programmer, because I was an extrovert, was the toughest part of my career. Sitting behind a desk and the manager giving me the task or the project, and I'm just sitting there on the screen. That was tough for me. I wanted to get out. I wanted to talk to people. It was tough for me. As a kid in high school, I was the loudest kid. I was outgoing. So becoming a programmer, that was tough. But enjoying the programming, I'm a nerd. If you want to talk cryptocurrency, if you want to talk programmer stuff, I love getting into it. I'm a
me nerdy.
So, I mean, I spend probably too much time like on cryptocurrency. On my other time with programming, like I try to, I don't know. I lose most friends when I talk about it. They get bored out of their mind, but I enjoy it. I love it.
Side note, like a great trick I learned to get someone a good gift is like the thing that you like kind of zone out when they're talking about it. You have to get them a gift related to that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
That is a good point.
Hot tip.
Something they want to talk about regardless of you being interested.
Yeah. One of the best gifts I ever got for my ex-husband was like I don't even remember what it was called, but it was like a basketball book. I don't. He grew up in Chicago during like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and my favorite guy that I can't remember who has
Rodman?
Dennis Rodman. Yes.
A big fan.
Tony Kukoc?
I always
Kukoc.
liked Rodman the most, but like I guess Pippen and Jordan are more important to Chicago, I guess. But.
I think
Yeah.
Pippen doesn't get enough credit. Pippen's overshadowed.
Well, didn't they write a whole musical about him though?
What?
Gilbert and Sullivan wrote a whole musical about Scottie Pippen. No, I'm just kidding. It's just, they were like they predated him. It's Pippin, like Pippin, like it's a operetta or something.
Sorry, that was too cultured of a reference for us.
You laughed, so it was thank you for laughing at my joke.
No, I seriously thought there was a Pippin opera.
I thought it was a very real thing too. I'm like, I could see this happening.
Yeah, I mean,
I actually stole that joke from my ex-husband's best friend's improv troupe from college, which I never saw, but I heard the joke. I was like, that's brilliant.
Okay.
So Emmett, what about you? Who are you? What's your story?
We're getting reverse interviewed. I like it.
Yeah.
I was born in Arlington Heights, and
where the racetrack is.
Yeah, my mom is Vietnamese, so the minute she discovered that there are warmer places in the U.S., I got to grow up in San Diego, which I think she is the smarter of my two parents. So
It's the only place in Southern California that I like, being from San Francisco originally.
oh yeah,
Where we hate Southern California, but
yeah. If you can afford it, it's beautiful. So I grew up there mostly. Did my high school years in Bangkok, Thailand. Came back to San Diego because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I finished high school in '95.
oh, wait, well, why Thailand?
My dad is a Vietnamese linguist and translator, or he was. And at that time, Vietnam and the U.S. had not spoken in a couple decades. And so they were reestablishing diplomatic communication. So my father, an old army buddy, said, hey, there's no Vietnamese linguists around. Do you want to come work at the embassy and reestablish contact with Vietnam? So, but Thailand is the hub for all Asian embassies. So we're operating out of Thailand. Well, he was. I went to school. So I went to high school in Thailand because my dad was working at the embassy. So that was an awesome, I mean, that's a whole nother story of his mission and his work and his accomplishments. But for me, it's just an American kid in Bangkok of all places and trying to figure stuff out. This is pre-internet.
One night in Bangkok and the world's your oyster, right? Isn't that how the song goes?
Yeah,
Not so much.
It still doesn't make sense, even with all
For a musical reference. I've
Yeah.
never actually seen that. The musical is called Chess. It's like the nerdiest and probably the worst musical there ever was. But like,
Is the song from the
I know the
musical?
song. Yeah.
Okay.
One night in Bangkok and the world's your
That makes
oyster.
more sense because when I was in Bangkok, there was never any chess tournaments happening in the seedy bars that we would
But
frequent.
I think that I mean, to your point, what you were saying about communication being cut off. I mean, because a lot of that was due to the the Cold War, right?
There was
like
a
with
Vietnam War, yeah.
But no, yeah, well, but like, I mean, like, so this musical was about chess, and so that was because of the Cold War, where it was like, okay, well, where are they going to meet up?
Oh.
And to your point of like how this is the center of like, Asian embassies, and so they met up and did this. Listen, are there? I don't. That's the only part I know. Wow. So you do know the show. So you do know it. So I know like Take on Me. I know like
Video of the radio star.
I just turned 40. Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So then what after Thailand? You said you San Diego. Uh-huh. So where do they go though? Or not even poor, but just regular kids, right? Like, yeah. So what did you study? Did you also study? You didn't study software engineering, or? I picture that like Tom Cruise in Cocktail, like flipping So I mean, like, which is a little bit before my time, like probably before your, like neither of us were drinking at that point, like of drinking age, but like I thought I did bartending too, and you think like that's the life. I'm gonna flip the bottles, and it's like no shit, like I gotta, yeah.
We actually had a guy running one of the presses at the last job that I was at, and he was a bartender for TGI Fridays, and he was always in their like world flair competitions. So you'd be like, "Big Rez," you know,
TGI Fridays.
always something he'd take apart, and he'd be like, "Yeah."
It's like the best maker of a Chili's margarita goes to the world like competition. I'm like,
yes. It's fair.
wow.
I could never. I just.
Are you still doing sorry, are you still doing real estate right now? You did say that we could interrupt you.
Doing run into the property brothers.
Well, how are you even able to like spend time with us? Like I feel like the real estate market is fucking insane right now. Hmm. 60% of realtors do 0 transactions. Okay. Hmm. Mhm. And I think, oh, you make so much commission off of like one sale. And it's like, well, yeah, but you could just make one sale
To me,
twice a
none
year
of
or
it sounds
something.
appealing. I feel like that sounds like a lot of work. Can I look at a spreadsheet, please? That's where I'm at.
Mm.
That was the right move.
We do. I mean, that's our job. We love that. Maybe we should go into real estate. No, no, because we don't. Yeah. Um, mhm.
Nobody trusts.
We trust. Well, listen, I think it's different in our field. Like, but yeah, nobody. You have to like work a lot to get some of these.
Yes. Yeah. If you look at the SPE Foundation website, which is within the forspe.org website, you can find the scholarships. They open up, I think, in December and they close in April. Like right now, we're actually doing the judgment. And you can apply as a freshman going into college up through being a grad student. And
yeah, actually,
so much money out there, and pretty much if you qualify, you will get some money.
Yeah, I mean, and there are different like divisions. So I'm immediate past chair of recycling division, and we have our inaugural scholarships this year. And to qualify, you just have to be studying one of like 7 different fields. Not all of them are STEM, and have like there's a creative element too, where you have to have like a project or a paper or an internship or something involved in recycling. You know, and we'll give you money. And then there are also divisions within Society of Plastics Engineers who do a separate scholarship. So I'm also involved in, I'm on the board for Color and Appearance Division. And that you don't even, like, you could be studying, we've given scholarships like up to $5,000 for people, they're nurses who just recognize the importance of color. And like for example, like the color of gloves will tell you what the material is and whether or not you're going to be allergic to it, basically. You know, so if you write a good paper for that, you know, you can. I'm not on the scholarship committee for that part, but like, I mean, there's a ton of money. We just are trying to. Again, there's a generational gap, and so we're trying to touch base with younger folk and younger folk. I sound like old. Anyway, go on. Next question. So at forspe.org, navigate to the scholarship page. People who are applying for scholarships will hopefully be able to do that.
We're available. Oh,
pretty much none.
Coffee. Coffee is a great daily habit. I make sure I get that. I usually try and do like 5-10 minutes of like, I either try and like walk or, you know, just do like a quick, I'm going to say exercise video. I want you to know that that term is used very loosely, but just do like a couple minutes, like by myself. I try, it doesn't.
Lindsay's the rare breed of people who like does that powerlifting. She's a CrossFitter who doesn't say that she's a CrossFitter. Like she's the unicorn. She's the unicorn.
I just shoot for unicorn and everything. So I do actually.
She does. She's yeah. I would say my best daily habit is our 3-way text group that we have with another woman in the industry, and it's important that it's 3 people. I think because Lindsay and I would for a long time like text each other, but then you get busy in the molding room where you really have to use both hands, like, you know, on the machinery, and we can't always respond to each other. And it's been really, really beneficial and really powerful for me where like you need to get a response from somebody who gets it, you know, and so that's been my best daily habit.
We're power trio.
We're power trio. Yeah, she was just promoted. The other person was just can we say her name? We can say her name.
Yeah, Laura
Huge
Meyer.
Promotion. Yeah.
But
who not so long ago she was on the phone with me saying she wasn't an engineer type. Yeah, and the other person can always sub in. Yeah, you always need a sub. And I would say that my best weekly habit is having a weekly 10 to 15 minute one-on-one with each team member of mine. It has improved my company like
weekly habit. I text 3 people in the industry and tell them why I'm thankful for them. And I think it's little, but it's been really nice to let people know they're appreciated. I didn't get this because I overslept, but whatever. On the next week. I am
Same shit.
probably
Same
what
shit.
you what you would think of as cryptocurrency challenged or illiterate, or I know Bitcoin, and isn't there like Dogecoin or whatever? See, there we go. I know.
But what do you think of it? But what do you think of it? Answer the question, Lynzie. What do you think about it?
It with like all financial things, sounds like it'd probably be good if I looked into it, but I don't know. I don't have time. I'm too tired. I'm busy, Mom.
Engineering first. That takes up the majority of the time, right? Yeah. And then let's. And listen, like our generation too, with our parents living longer and all these like dementia and Alzheimer issues, like it's the sandwich generation, they call it, right? Where you're dealing with multiple kids and like
sandwich.
Yeah, shit sandwich. Well, I mean, so when you talk about currency, it started as basically a voucher for taxes. Like it's like, so, and I mean, like really that's what it is, right? Like, so it's based on like paying the government back. So the benefit of cryptocurrency is you don't have to pay anyone back. But as with my opinion of cryptocurrency is like, if you're talking about like, I said, my first thing that I said was like, same shit, just if you're talking about trading, right? Like you just watch the trends. Yeah, that's but so that's the big benefit of cryptocurrency is that it's not a voucher for taxes. Basically, it's not, it's not an IOU. It's not an IOU.
Yeah. Oh. So if I were to get you a gift, it would be about cryptocurrency.
Hey, yes, the autobiography of like there was a documentary made about or no, it was like I listened to it on maybe it was like This American Life or something. I'm trying to remember what it was, but this wild story where it's like, yes, I think it was This American Life, where they were trying to start a cryptocurrency and like putting the phones in the microwave and stuff like that in this hotel room and stuff, like, yeah.
It wasn't This American Life because I would have heard it.
Okay. Maybe it was Radio Lab.
Would you dare besmirch Hourglass? Biggest problem for humans.
I would say not
misunderstanding.
I would say in general, just not listening. Not in regards to plastic, but I mean, listen, like we Lynzie and I both work in technical fields, and my feeling is that we get consumed with this, like, okay, it's this technical problem, but like truth is like you come up with a solution to this technical problem, but like then you can't make it up like in the ranks because it'll get shot down because of a human problem. But same thing, like, listen, I'm divorced, I'm dealing with parenting agreements and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, like it's all of our biggest problems are actually human engineering, and so much of that is actually listening and our own ego, right? Like recognizing when, and this is actually something that John Ratzliff, one of our male mentors, taught me, is like recognizing the ego, not just the person you're talking, because that's what you first want to do. You want to say, oh, it's this person, like this person's ego that I have to soothe or sidestep, but you have to realize, okay, is this problem real or is it just my ego acting up? So listening is a huge, it's really hard to listen. It's really, really hard to listen.
I know I'm the one with the time limit here, but part of Mercedes, you coming into the industry, it was a real initial, threat to my ego, there being someone else doing something like me, it was a threat to my uniqueness and, my ability to stand out in this industry where I was already feeling like I was being, kind of shuttered or hidden away. But I think this is gonna sound real.
It's beautiful. She's never told me this before.
But I think putting my ego aside, like a champion human, I think that allowed us to become a stronger force than if I were to be on some, level of unhealthy competition with you,
Yeah.
I mean, we have competition.
We have very healthy competition where we are comparing our, like Lynzie was promoted to, or Lynzie got like vice president of in SPE, and then I convinced my boss to promote me to vice president. She bought a house, I bought a condo. Like,
I had a
she had a third kid.
I'm in the third kid.
Listen, I'm dating a woman right now. That's gonna be a whole process. Like listen, but that's beautiful. You never told me that, and it's like, and at the same time, I felt like the little whatever it is, like in those cartoons, like from Looney Tunes. I was a little Chihuahua, and you were the massive bulldog. I'm like, hey, want to hang out with me? I was like, I see that you like drinking beer, and you played viola, and I play guitar, and I love craft beer, and I bartended in this place in San Francisco with Ace craft beers on tap before it was a thing. And can we hang out? Like, like that was like I was just so like I knew.
Well, and to me, it was the opposite. It was, God, she is like already like making such a splash and making such an entrance. Like, what have I been doing? Sitting on my ass all these years? And like, an answer was yes. But
well, the thing that was, I felt like the biggest like flattery that you gave me was like when we did like a thing for Plastics Engineering magazine, like that interview, and you said that. Like part of that nemesis relationship, which we still have, is like you sometimes ask yourself, oh, would Mercedes take this on? Would she do it? Oh, if she would do it, all right, I'm gonna get off my ass and do it, And that, and it's like I wasn't gonna fucking buy a condo, but Lynzie bought a house, and I was like, all right, shit, okay, Yeah.
There we go. This is a problem. No, I mean, I said a plasticky answer, but I'm gonna stand by it, even though Mercedes is insightful and deep and all that shit. But I think the misunderstanding of plastics is a big detriment to a lot of people and a lot of facets of people. So. Burgers. Well, no, it's gotta be a delicious one. But I can, I can be wowed by like a good bun and like just, a simple cheeseburger with like one pickle and some ketchup, but it's gotta be really good. Best pickle size. But like pretty much if you're gonna say we're having burgers, I'm in.
Probably chilaquiles. Chilaquiles, it's just like it's kind of like it's a Mexican breakfast food. Like you take like some tortilla strips, some eggs, like you can put them in any way. Like it doesn't have to be scrambled. You can throw in like whatever you want, but it's like Mexican breakfast.
Laura. Laura would be a good one because she is.
I feel like she like is still, it's hard for women in this industry, especially who come up through plastics engineering school.
She doubts herself. She's
all of the professors. I know 2 professors that are women in our industry.
I know, well, we overlappingly know.
Erin Kinney.
Erin, Meg.
Meg, so yeah.
She would be
Supposed to.
great. And Allison Rhodes at Penn State, she is,
At Barron?
yeah, she's a
Yeah, I don't know her.
genius. And her research assistant, Annie, well, actually, that's probably a super insult to Annie because Annie is, I don't know what her real title is now. I know she's only teaching like one class and like doing majority of her time research, but she, I mean, they go deep. They got a NSF grant for Penn State, which is like, I guess, super hard and like the realm they were pitching it in. I don't know. It was a big deal.
Hmm.
Oh, cool.
Hmm.
Boy.
I would say Christine Femia, who I know that you're threatened by her because she's like my other friend that I text constantly.
I don't like this.
She's a college friend of mine, and
She's
she
the
is
worst.
the
I
one.
wouldn't talk to her.
She's the one who enlightened me to the role of human resources. So she, we went to Sarah Lawrence together, and she stayed in Brooklyn, and she worked for a very big healthcare company, and now she's since moved on from that company, but she was like human resources director, and during the pandemic, she had to lay off. She and another coworker of hers had to lay off 250 people over the course of 2 weeks, and it enlightened me to the fact that like HR is the part that really builds the culture of the company, and it's the unsung hero, and we just like really, yeah, and it's like, oh, HR, and listen, there are a lot of, and HR is really relegated to that a lot, but when you really like, when you make that person like the most, when you give that person the credit, it's like, God, what they can do for your company. Gosh, I mean, not God. I can add that part out. Yahweh or whatever. So I shouldn't say. Okay. Yes. Well, first, a very silly kind of pressing Vegas. Have you guys ever been to a 51s game?
No, it was only a year or two before pandemic, so it was one of those things where it was kind of on the list to do and just never quite got around to it. But it's a beautiful ballpark, and everybody everybody loves the experience. And
I would think it would be awful, like being outside in like Nevada, but I think it's the most hilarious. Like, and I love, like, my favorite is like I love baseball, as you know.
Yeah.
But like minor league teams, like really give it their all. Like it's not.
They're trying to get in the major.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's fun too. Like, because also like a lot of times, but it's like hilarious too. It's like 51s because Area 51s and their mascot is an alien, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It cracks me up.
It was pretty popular. Well, so the Golden Knights made a huge splash here, the hockey team, because prior to that, Vegas didn't have any sports teams. Just a sports betting town with no teams, and it's a huge growing city. So we hit 1 million people, and now we're closer to 2 million people.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a big city and no sports. So when hockey showed up, strangely in the middle of the desert, people became instant hockey fans.
It's air conditioned.
Yeah. So, but I think with the 51s, there's obviously the summers are brutal if it's 110 out, but there's a lot of times when it's not 110. So if it's 90 in the shade, you're probably all right to hang out and have a beer. And I'm not gonna say you get used to it, but it's
it's like you get acclimated. I'm like, whoo.
A little. Well, it's not humid.
Like it's very hot in Chicago. It's like maybe 80 today.
So there's less humidity here, so it makes it a little different.
It's a dry heat, as they say.
Yeah. So it's obviously you want to go when the weather's nice, but people seem to love it. So it's on my list of activities to do, and because it's minor league, it's not super expensive.
Yeah.
So
that was just like my icebreaker question. I wanted to get into because what you said about like relations between the U.S. and Vietnam had been cut off for how long?
Well, since the end of the Vietnam War, 1975, 76, yeah.
Because in preparation for this podcast, and I think that Liem, you had mentioned Viet. What was it? Viet.
Some Viet.
Some Viet. Some Viet. That's what it was.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh gosh, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, and I'd watched some, the clips and stuff like that, and everything you'd sent. And I was like, well, anyway, I'm gonna skip past all that. It reminded me, like, I had this experience one of my times when because I lived abroad quite a bit, Austria and Germany and Russia.
Oh wow!
Cool.
And I remember I was
need to do a
teaching
podcast just on that.
well, I remember teaching a class, and I forget if it was because I felt like I was so, I think it must have been in Russia actually.
Yeah.
Where, listen, I am from San Francisco. Like I like I call my home base like North Beach, like where my childless aunt lives. It was like kind of my mom.
Yeah.
Which is like right next door to Chinatown. Like it's like she gets all her produce from Chinatown. So it's not like I didn't have interaction with Asians. I studied, Japanese in college and everything like that. But like yes. And then it was in Russia. Yeah. Because I suddenly, like, when I was like learning about my students, like, tell me a little bit more about yourselves.
Uh-huh.
And then this woman, at the college where I was teaching, she was like, oh, I'm from Vietnam. And I like my stomach dropped, right? I was like, I felt like I immediately had to apologize to this person. And it not even like I was I wasn't a history major, I wasn't, but I was immediately like, oh,
yeah,
this is, and she didn't have that at all. I'm like, okay, tell me what it's like. And she's like, oh, the thing that I remember most is she's like, big bicycle culture. Like, we have like, instead of bus stops, we have bicycle stops and like, things like that. And it's like, we're moving to Chicago. There's actually, decent number. There's little Vietnam, I don't know what they call it. Yeah. Like my kids have like one of the first, like their first favorite foods is banh mi. Like, but that's all new. Like, and that's weird because it's like, listen, like I brought banh mi to my girlfriend when she was like painting her house the other day.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like such a part of like, it's regular now. Like, but for some reason when I heard some Viet, I was like, ooh, this was an experience I had. And this would have been 2000. It was my first year in Russia, 2002.
Yeah.
And then it was like, this is the first person I've met from Vietnam that I knew was from Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, shit, I don't have that reaction now going in and buying banh mi, but like, what is it like? I mean, you guys probably are mistaken for Chinese or Filipino, like I said, like, and tell me about being Vietnamese in the United States.
I think on a individual level, it really comes down just like the racism thing is just, you're going to meet some good people and some not so good people, and you're going to meet some people that are ignorant, whether they chose to be or not, to whether it was their fault or not, if that makes sense. Meaning some people that naturally go out and try to understand other cultures, or even if they're just more open to different foods, different cultures. One thing that I argue with Emmett, I say, when you say food is gross, if for example, oysters, if you don't like oysters, and she's like, oh, that's fucking gross. To
that
me,
can be tremendously insulting. Yeah,
exactly.
If it's like,
it's like that person.
No offense.
I'm not offended.
It's those. I would say, if you're smart enough to be able to break down the levels of intellect that gets to that point, meaning someone had to be fortunate enough to live in a life in America where they never ever had to eat oysters. So now they've had a chance to go to college and whatnot and be very educated and have opportunities. That's very privileged. I'll say privilege in the sense that in America, we all are privileged.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess there are some people that are a little bit less fortunate, but that's a different topic.
But even the less fortunate people are way more fortunate than like if you've been. Yeah.
So anyways, I guess I went on a tangent. I think people, if you have the mindset to be open and try to understand and empathize or sympathize. So as for me, growing up in San Diego, California, then living in Las Vegas for the last 9 years.
Yeah, something like that.
I racism, I don't think is that big of a thing for me. I don't know. I do have, earlier when you and Lynzie were talking about being women in a male dominant industry, my perspective on being a short Asian male in America, I don't know. It's hard for me to decipher how much height or how much is having the face of an Asian affects my salary and my career opportunities. I'm pretty vocal about it, and I feel like some of my career opportunities, I see other tall white friends that get promotions, and I'm like, I feel like we're of equal competence in IT, and if anything, I've had some friends where I feel like I'm way better in programming or whatever that compared to what they do, and their salary.
Yeah, and even you look at like the statistics of like CEOs, like majority of CEOs are like over 6.
Yeah.
Tall white dudes.
Yeah. But okay, like the racism thing aside, because that's an important question. And I like, because it's a different animal for Asian Americans than it is for other minorities in the United States. And it's important to talk about, but I'm talking about more like the history. Because there is a dirty history between Vietnam and the U.S. So, like, do you feel like that affects you at all? Like, are you like honestly, if I'm like, if I were in your shoes, like, I'm like, I mean, it's I don't know. Do you think about that?
There's I wonder if this answers your question a little bit. For me, when I think about my dad being in the Vietnam War, and then his story, like, to me, it sounds crazy. His story is, I'll try to make it quick.
No. I have all the time in the world to talk about this. Like, this is more important than
historical
all the plastics.
interest.
Like,
he was
human interest.
Yeah, he was his family was in Saigon, South Vietnam. He joined the army for the U.S. side, and then so as America's in Vietnam, Americans don't know how to look at Vietnamese and even decipher who is of northern mental communist views and who is more democratic and on the American side. And so even his family, they had to be fearful, knowing that his mom's, or how do I say, so he joined the military. So his brothers and sister and his mom have to be worried that if they say that they have someone in the military, if some North Korean spy comes through,
North
Vietnamese. Oh, I said Korean.
It's the same shit. Like, I mean, I lived in Russia and it's the same thing. You know, I didn't live in Russia during communism, but like I lived in Russia with like people who lived that, and it's like people whose parents both work for KGB and then FSB. And the parents didn't even know that they both worked. And during like the glasnost, like after like,
they kept it secret from each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they only found out during glasnost when everything was exposed. And it was like, oh shit, you were doing, oh yeah. And then she was like, oh yeah, my job was like to be, because I was multilingual. I was like on trains. My job was just take notes on all the foreigners, like, and overhear their conversations. Oh, my job was like, I when I was going to work, in the plant, I was actually like listening to every conversation, it was like,
Yes.
and even, and even the, like, my chazeka, like host mom, whatever, her dad or father-in-law was like, he had died before I met him, but it was like, he had the experience where he would just like, they would tell me the story, and the grandchild would tell me the story too, where he would just like pick up the phone anytime before he made a call and wait and hear a click, like he would like, and they were like, oh, he's paranoid, right?
Yeah.
He was a poet. Like that was his profession, he was a poet. Like he was an artist, right? And that's very like highly watched, right?
Yeah.
And highly regarded too at the same time. Meanwhile, doctors were like shit in Russia. Like, I was like, I'm dating like I came home one day, I was like, oh, I'm going on a date with a doctor, and they're like,
doctors suck here.
They're like you should like see like a journalist, like a writer, like maybe find like But so anyway, so he was a poet, and so he would but the best story was like, he would like, and they all thought he was crazy. Like, no, they're not listening to you anymore. You're an old man. You're not even producing art anymore. You're not writing. And then like, and one day, like he got so mad at my host mom. This is before she was my host mom. Like, he was like, he was swearing and stuff like that. And then they're like, which is very bad in Russia. It's not, Russians use it more in here, but like in Russia, it's very bad, the swear words. and then there was like suddenly a voice on the telephone being like, "Matam ni nada," like you don't need to like use these swear words. Like, and they were like, "Oh shit!"
Watch
like
your
he's like,
language.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, so it's like, and it's so that was an interruption. Same shit. Like, yes, you can call it like North Korea, South Korea, you know, White Russia, like Red Russia. Like, yeah, I get it. So continue with story.
So then
please.
he, on the night of 1975, when the war ended, so he went to his brothers and sisters, from my understanding, and his mom, and said, "Tomorrow, I'm going to go to this beach. There's supposed to be a boat that's going to take us. I don't know. I can't verify. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I'm going to be there at 4 a.m. and whoever shows up, brothers, sisters, you guys could come with." He shows up on the beach the next morning and no one's there. And I don't know if I forget the tell. I try to piece this story together because my dad, he always goes on tangents. I can't get his direct story from him. It is impossible. I don't know. I can't. So I try to piece
Because it's too emotional too. It's
he's fortunately one of the few, or I would say, I have, I think, some friends, family, aunts, uncles that are more affected. He's not as affected negatively. So it's just he's just.
But maybe he's not showing it. You know, because I see that with my grandfather who's passed, but like he didn't ever show a thing, and then like all he would show is anger.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And at one point I was asking my dad, I was like, why is he so mean? Like as a little kid, I was like, why is he so mean? He's like, hey, my dad is a very, you know, empathetic person. He's like, you know, some people just don't know how to be sad, and it'll play out in different ways in them, and so unfortunately his is anger.
Yeah. So I don't remember if my dad learned about this after or before, meaning his brother, one brother, or I think two brothers said that, well, they got girlfriends and they're serious about it, about getting married, so that they're not going to go with my dad to the boat. His older sister said, no, she's mentally more North Vietnamese mentally.
Okay, so communist. Like I'm not like, and so the boat was going to the U.S. or?
Yeah.
Oh, so she's like, fuck that. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
I forget I forget the answer of the younger aunt. And then he went by himself. He had no one. I can imagine.
That's so hard.
Yeah,
to be so alone.
Because I mean, you got to. The other thing that's crazy is, in his shoes, he's dead if he stays. North Vietnamese are going to come capture him, put him in some jail cell, torture him. To him,
it's re-education.
Yeah. So he's dead if he doesn't go. He's thinking he's probably, in his mind, he had some like maybe 20% chance this boat is actually for real and he's going to make it to America. He had no idea.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as I'm telling the story, like I feel that I try to put myself in his shoes, and I can't fathom like the pain on all sides of that.
Yeah. I mean, and just like having to leave, like, I feel like in the US, like we don't have, it's a little bit different. Like it is like first gen, maybe second gen families who are like that, like where you have like the 3 generations living together in a household, where you have like, but like in a lot of like US families, it's like, okay, they turn 18 and then they go move across the country. Like you don't have the close relationships where like family is everything, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like with a lot of people outside of the United States, a lot of immigrants to the United States, that's what breaks my heart about that story is like, my goodness, like he shows, I mean, the most important part for me of that story is like he shows up and he's alone on the beach. And it's like, he's alone, like, this is going to be my future and I'm just going to have to make it work.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. He tells me, I'm getting emotional too, just thinking of his journey. He says he went to Philippines. So I guess it was a military boat, I guess, because I think they docked in Philippines for a while. And then he got over to Chicago, I think, afterwards. I think I might be wrong.
Yeah.
Now, he said it was about 20 years later until he had money and funds to phone back home or send a letter. So his mom didn't know, his family didn't know if he was alive for 20 years.
Wow. They didn't like. Did the boat sink? Did he get captured? Wow.
Yeah.
And so are you in touch with your dad's family in
Yeah.
Vietnam?
Yeah. So one of the beautiful things, I think, something that made me tear up a little bit. Last trip to Vietnam, I got closer to one of his younger sister, my aunt, just to get stories and ask about just the history of the Vietnam War and stuff.
And was she the more like socialist-minded one, or she was?
No, but
she was like, I'm falling in love. I can't.
This one was, she ended up marrying, I don't know, I'm guessing she was younger, so she probably didn't meet this guy till later after the Vietnam War. But she did end up marrying, this younger sister did end up marrying like a social, I don't know if to call him a socialist-minded person. I don't know if that's a better term, or a communist-minded person. Because when I asked her to have dinner at her place, because I wanted to talk to her and ask her some of her inside stories of what happened then in 1975 until now. Mm-hmm. One of the things I asked her was, so my dad was very, what's the word I want to say? He was very strict with me and my brother growing up, as in physically reprimanding. I don't want to use the word abuse because
capital punishment. You can say, right?
Because in
Corporal.
America, or I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, so, like not on the head, but like on the body.
Yeah. In America, we protect children quite a bit. I don't.
And more this generation does. But like previously. Yeah. But I mean, for sure, like my grandfather like used the belts and stuff like that. Like that was like
different time.
Yeah. So
or chancla, like with we used to call ourselves Hispanics. Like we're always like learning, like what are we called now? Are we? Oh, we're Latinas or Latinx. Like no, like I don't like. Why do we have to keep like being under this umbrella? Yeah. Right. But chancla is like a real thing. Oh, palo, wooden spoon. Yeah. It's real. Yeah. So anyway, so your dad was strict.
Yeah. So I asked my aunt, is that something my dad was, or is that something Vietnam culture carried into him? And she's look, listen, or not listen. Think back to 1975. Think back before that. It was a poor country. If you had a little bit of rice, you were rich. If you had a little bit of food, you were rich. So she said back then, if a kid did something, say, I don't know, played at home, broke a door, just what if, of course the parent's going to come home and beat the living shit out of the kid because they have no money. That kid was goofing off and broke something that cost money, and they have no money to begin with. They have no food. Mm-hmm. And then I said, well, what about your kid? And then what about Uncle? They do it by numbers. So Uncle 6, she's aunt number 9. So I said, what about Uncle 6 and your kid? Uncle 6 and his grandkids and your kid. I see you guys love your kids. Is that something Western culture brought, or is that what happened? She's like, well, after 1975, things got better. We had food. So then we could love our children even more and not have to hit them because they did something bad.
It wasn't survival. It was about something else. Yeah. I mean, that's something I see in Russia, where like you see it in people's faces, like people who, and when I was there, gosh, the last year I was there was 2005 probably, which is like now, like it's crazy that it was so long ago, but it was like, you can see it's just a different face, different outlook on life to people who live for survival. Yeah. And you don't see it in the United States. Mm-hmm. That face, I mean, you guys have seen it, right? Like it's like,
well, this is the only place on earth that has overweight homeless people. Yeah, that doesn't exist anywhere else.
My goodness, I remember like when I worked in Fisherman's Wharf, I would walk back home to. Do you guys know the Bay Area at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
So it's not like a big walk, like Fisherman's Wharf to North Beach. Like it was just like a handful of like 7-8 blocks, and so I had like a burger or something, like, and I was walking home, and homeless person asked me and for money. I was like, no, but you can have this food, and he was like, what is it? And I was like, oh, it's a burger. He's like, oh, I'm vegetarian.
Yeah. Beggars can be choosers.
I was like, literally like and it sucks too, because it's like everybody should have their own values and their own standards, but like that's what we think of too. It's like yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like we're the only country that has like,
It's a weird thing.
and then you look at Russia where it's like they literally don't have homeless people. Like they can't. Like you have to have a home, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise you'll freeze to death, right?
Yeah, you're not gonna make it.
You have bums, I guess you would call them. Like like,
Yeah.
but it's different, right? And but Emma, like, do you? I mean, because we were talking, but like, what is your experience of? I just feel like the weight of
I think what are you?
of a war that
Yeah.
Americans have no conflict on somehow. Like I grew up thinking that we had won the Vietnam War. Like like
Yeah.
like which is like, I mean, winning a war is a misconception on its own, but like I knew somehow, like, not knowing about Vietnam at all, it was just like when I saw this woman, she said she was from Vietnam, and it was like impacted me. When I was like,
So
I grew up around a ton of Asian people, but when I
Yeah.
heard Vietnam, I was like, shit, I'm at fault here. I need to say sorry to this woman,
Do you feel some weight of the U.S. having been the oppressor and an atrocity do you see it in a negative way? Is that what that's coming from?
I feel a ton of guilt about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I certainly have an interest in it, based on my parents. And I've studied it a little bit here and there. It wasn't until recently that you could find out much, so being 44 when I was younger wasn't like you could pick up relevant books or anything or learn about it very easily. That recent Ken Burns documentary that it's like, it would take you a month to finish it, but it's more than you ever wanted to know about the Vietnam War. That does a pretty good job of laying out the facts and the causes and the lead up of why the U.S. is there.
I did what? I don't know. I didn't know. What's that one called?
Oh, I think it's just called the Vietnam War. It's by Ken Burns. It was a
And
PBS.
he has good stuff, but yeah, it like goes on like many episodes.
Yeah, so it's super long. If you just watch the first couple, it'll tell you why we started, why it began.
Well, I watched a documentary that was actually about Robert McNamara, and my biggest piece that I was like, oh shit, like what he said. I mean, a fascinating guy, right? Like, and it's ironic because he worked for General Motors and he was the one who implemented the seatbelt, so he saved so many lives, right?
Yeah.
And his like reflection and his biggest regret was like, many years later, he got together with like the foreign secretary or whatever, and he was like, Mr. McNamara, like you were fighting for this, Americans were fighting for this and that. You don't understand what what was actually important to us. You don't understand.
Yeah.
Like it was like completely different. And that's what I see with manufacturing, actually bringing it back to what we were talking about earlier. And that's why I wanted to say, like, because even like, I mean, listen, I've only spent a handful of days in China when it comes down to it. But even understanding, like, they're feeling this pressure. You can say they have different values, but ultimately humans all want the same thing,
Yeah.
We're the same species. Like, and people say, oh, it's different values and like, intellectual property, like, which is very different in the United States.
Yeah.
And, but like when it comes down to it, it's like, and it was really beautiful to hear Robert McNamara talking about like, this is like his biggest regret is like, we didn't understand what the Vietnamese actually wanted. It was actually, he's like, we were fighting like to maintain our country, our identity, and it's like, well, shit, like, it wasn't, and that's the saddest thing about, and why I call it like the Cold War too. That's a Cold War.
Well, so
aftershock, just because I'm like a Californian. Like, go ahead.
Yeah. So to address your question, it's a lot of that is lost in the next generation. That the generation that lived that war is dying. My dad just died May 2nd. So.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great run, so we're lucky to have had him so long. But that generation that lived that experience is disappearing. The next generation, like you said, doesn't know that conflict. They don't know the motives. They don't know the intentions. They don't know the struggle. Even in Vietnam, everybody's got a moped and a cell phone, and they're looking towards a future and a new modern life. And so it's it's history that is evaporating. But I don't think it's all negative. So my dad's job was to go look for PWMIAs to find missing Americans from the Vietnam War in the early 90s. So so there's a big lobby for that in Washington.
Wow, that is like a straight up PTSD job.
Well, he found it super therapeutic because he had guilt and regrets, and he felt this is a good thing I can do, and this totally noble and helps everybody, and nobody's against this. And so he was one of the first. Yeah, it's actually the opposite of a PTSD job. It's like, this is how I can deal with the trauma of, and this is how I can. Yeah, it's the proudest thing he did. So
wow.
But he went to Vietnam when there were no Americans in Vietnam. There was no embassy. There's no consulate. So he's connecting with communist, government officials and reconnecting to that world. And so here's the best answer to your question is in getting to know him, their job is to watch him, make sure he's not doing anything he ain't supposed to do, right? But you travel with some dudes for weeks, they get to trust you and they know you, right? And they say, you know what, we get it now. We understand what America was trying to do. Russia sent us guns and sent us weapons, and America sent us their children. So which side was right? We'll never know, but we see the intentions were good. So even in Vietnam, they get it.
That's very kind.
Yeah,
that's very kind.
But the South definitely was fighting against the North. If these other powers didn't exist, there was conflict within the country, right? So it's not entirely this evil thing that America perpetrated on Vietnam. So it's complex, but there's a lot of conflicting interests, conflicting motivations. And so now Vietnamese people, having seen when people leave Vietnam, where do they go? They go to the U.S. What do? They send back money. That doesn't sound terrible, right? Are they complaining about the U.S.? Does anybody ever leave the U.S. and go back to Vietnam? Does anybody leave the U.S. and try to go to Russia? So it's you see the proof in the pudding of what is good is what is bad.
Well, that's an interesting question too. Like,
yeah,
why are people not going back? Because it's like, okay, I'm making more money here, but like, what can I? This is something that's like. A question that they're asking on reservations now in the United States, right? Like, it's like, there is like this, not even a trend yet, but like, there are some people who get educated, from reservations, who get educated by like, Ivy League universities. And it's like really hard to get them back on the reservation. But the ones who do come back make amazing things happen, And so like, I don't know, getting crazy off topic, but like.
Well, so my message to you is, don't feel that the Vietnam War was all bad. It wasn't some sinister thing that the U.S. did. It was overall it was a good thing, from my perspective, from from seeing my parents' lives and seeing what I have seen of that nation. It was worth the fight. You know, there was bad all around, but America did what they thought was right. America had good intentions. So, because this is after World War II and after Korean War, right? You see what happens when you let the bad guys win. So that's really how they saw it. You let the bad countries win.
I'd like to I like to use North Korea, South Korea as a analogy to this. If America would have won the Vietnam War, look at what happened to North Korea and South Korea. South Korea is a booming economy 40 years later.
Yeah, that's true.
Massively booming economy. And that could have happened to Vietnam. Vietnam was 15, 20 years after this Korean War. Mm-hmm. So Vietnam would have been similar. There would have been a North Vietnam, South Vietnam. Maybe. I'm just throwing out speculation.
Yeah, but that's another huge proof in the pudding. Look at the results, right?
Now,
is it the proof in the pudding though? Like if Vietnam would have been separated, which is heartbreaking. But if there would be North Vietnam and South Vietnam, would South Vietnam be where South Korea is now?
I'm guessing it would. I don't know how else, or I don't know how we quantify that. But
Vietnam's definitely manufacturing now.
Yeah.
Bet you can find some clothes made in Vietnam.
Yeah, but I would imagine like wages in South Korea are way higher.
Yeah. So, but that just goes downstream, right? So next they'll do electronics and cars, and
Yeah, it's true. It's
so
true.
everybody
Yeah.
just follows Japan because they saw, hey, do you want to be like Japan? That looks great. Let's do that.
My thing with if you are feeling bad not knowing about the Vietnamese history or whatnot, I honestly don't think you should feel bad. I think it's only if someone wants to tell you their story about their Vietnamese history or culture, if you turn your back, didn't listen to them, I think that's when it starts to become there's a big negative effect from that. Meaning, if you got Vietnamese living near you and you happen to hear their story, that's great. But if you don't happen to know that story, that's okay. That's not your fault. Like, you don't have to go search the history of that war, in my opinion. It's just as long as if someone happens to want to tell you their story, and then maybe you should
She
hear it out.
loves history.
Another thing would be if you judge someone. That's a problem that I do see sometimes. If someone were to judge, I'm trying to think of an example. Say, I'm just making something up. Say there's a white person seeing some Vietnamese people. Say there's 6 people. Say 8.
Why does that have to be a white person? No, I'm just kidding.
Say there's 8 people in one house, and they from the outside you probably the neighbor knows, well, that's probably a 2-bedroom house, and there's 8 people in there, and that's a Vietnamese household. If that white person were to look at it, or any other person, it doesn't need to be white like you said, but if they look down on it, that's the only thing that I would have a problem with. Try to go understand why they have 8 people in one house. If you don't make fun of them, don't say that, oh, they freaking have 8 people in one car, what the fuck? Like, don't judge. Just
They're making $7 an hour. It takes 8 of them to like.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that really I felt like touched my soul when you were talking about it, and I was like, I need to just like, because you had to keep talking and tell the story. I didn't want to interrupt you, but was when you talked about like tasting food and being like, oh, that's gross, and I did say like, oh, that can be incredibly offensive. Listen, most like women in business like love Oprah, right? But I'll like pun it up here and say a really bad taste in my mouth when I saw an episode of Oprah where she was tasting some like, I want to say it was sala, like maybe Ukrainian food or something, but she was tasting like a delicacy, and she was like, ugh, like, or it was like shark fin, like something. It was something that like she wasn't used to, and I was like, you're a fucking example for like, and it was like skinny Oprah. It wasn't like 80s Oprah. It was like she was already like O Magazine was a thing. Like she was already the richest woman in America, and I don't want to hate on her because like she is such like
does a lot of positive things. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, she's a reason like why I have a job. Like I don't know. Like, but like but to see her. Like immediate, I think it must have been Ukrainian sala or something where it's just like, oh, I don't want to try that. And it's like, and I was like, Oprah, you're breaking my heart. Like you're supposed to be like, and that's a whole other thing where you have expectations of somebody, but it's really offensive if you were rejecting and to your point, Liam, like being empathetic.
Yeah, I think it's just taste foods, and then like if you don't like it, then just say you don't like it. You don't have to say it's gross, because that starts to, the word gross is an offensive word that you're saying to that person's culture. Like, hey, that food is gross. Just say, no, I don't like it. I don't want any more. And actually, I mean, to some degree, I eat so many different foods. I usually take it a step above and say, I know this is a part of your culture. I really wish I would like it. I really wish I would, because I know this is traditionally, culturally, a big part of your culture. I wish I could enjoy it and understand part of your culture more, but it's just not for me. So I think it's. Go ahead.
Oh, to that point, the one of the guys that Lynzie and I, like a mentor to both of us, who's like the most, and it's helpful. Most of our mentors have daughters too, and in the industry. But this guy John Ratzliff has 3 daughters, and one of his experiences is telling us about. He was like, in China, and they were like they were like hazing him. They were giving him like something like absolutely disgusting that even like locals hate to eat. It was just like some like
something weird.
like part of the body that like or part of the animal's body that you don't. And and he was like, "Thank you so much. I'm very honored that you will give me this," because they were like, "Here's a special thing we're giving to you."
Yeah.
And they know that because he's so empathetic, he'll eat it. But he was just like, this is in his mind. He's like, "Oh God, I really don't want to do this." And he was just like, "Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you that you're giving me this amazing thing. And I want to, like, it's really the honor of like this, then like the local, like most like high person." Like he's like, "And really this gift should be to this person."
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Oh, that's disgusting." Like they were trying to trick him into eating it. Like, you know,
Good move.
but I mean, like, that's the best, like you have to like,
Try to sympathetically understand why that culture has that food, and that they had to eat that. They had to eat that to have food. Some of the things, like whether it be, it could have, I don't know. I'll just say chicken feet. If chicken feet was a delicacy, because back then, if you didn't eat that, then you didn't have food. So that became a delicacy because they had to eat it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I was telling my girlfriend, because I was driving, we had like a weird route to my friend's house the other day. We're driving to the south side of Chicago, which you don't think of as a third world country, but I had a sales job where it was like, I had to go, and it was like, oh yeah, like this. And I'm reminiscing as I'm driving, I'm like, yeah, that's where I first learned about like putting like the nacho cheese, like pouring it into the bag, where these like, you know, like they just like, you know, or like a peppermint stick in the middle of a pickle, like a pickle that's in a jar, like, you know, like a big jar like that. And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like, listen, like there's no, like, it's a food desert. Like this is the freshest thing there is. The hot nacho cheese, pour it over the Doritos, and then like the pickle from the jar with like a peppermint stick in it." And
Weird.
it's like, this is like a thing on this. I was like, I've been in Chicago for now 15, 16 years, and I've never seen it on the north side where I've always lived, but like on the south side, it's like, and I was seeing it when I was explaining to her. I was like, "Listen, like this is the freshest thing at the store.
Different culture.
It's a pickle from the jar and the hot nacho cheese."
Yeah.
And that's like the most desired thing, you know?
Yeah. It's one of the other stories I thought about while we were talking. My dad, when I think I forget the exact year, I think 1990 something. He was able to save enough money to put in the what's it called, the visa paperwork for all his brothers and sisters to come to America. But I think back then it was like anywhere between an 8 to 15 year processing. So he put in all the paperwork in 1990, somewhere around 1990, and then somewhere like early 2000s, I think, the paperwork came through and said you could continue the next step of this paperwork. So he told all his brothers and sisters. He had aunt number 2, uncle number 6, uncle number 7, aunt number 9, aunt number. I don't know the stories of the. I think 2 or 3 brothers and sisters died in that time. I don't know the stories, but so there was 5. So five of them he notified and said, "Hey, the paperwork's through. Do you guys want to continue on?" And surprisingly, only one in early 2000 said yes. Oh, I'm sorry, two of them. So there were 6. Sorry, 6 of them, and then 2 of them accepted the offer. The other 4 stayed. One uncle, he's doing pretty well. He opened up a fruit stand, and I think he started from they had the taxis, which was it's like a cart thing that you carry with the 2. Yeah. He did that, saved up money, opened a fruit shop. That fruit shop did well and expanded.
In what city?
In Saigon. So he was doing so well. He told my dad, like, "Well, I'm doing good here. You know, my fruit company's doing well. I got my wife, my kids." He decided not to.
And the rest of the family. Yeah, it's tough to.
Yeah. And then the 2 aunts that happened to have husbands that were more communists. So two brothers and sisters accepted. The other all had some, or the 2 aunts had the 2 aunts had husbands that were of communist views, so they stayed. the other uncle stayed. He said he just kind of thought that learning a new language coming to America would be difficult, and he said if he went, he knew he'd be not throwing away his life, because it's for his kids, because his kids were at that time probably 16 years old or something. So he knew he'd have to be throwing away his life for his kids.
Yeah, to give the kids the life. Yeah.
So I thought it was really interesting when my dad said, 4 out of 6 denied the next phase of that paperwork. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. Wow. Because most Vietnamese, even till this day, most Vietnamese, they think of America as a land of opportunity. And I mean, they're to some degree rightfully so. In the conversion rate of $1 to 23,000 dong, that conversion, I mean, 50 cents USD could buy, or I mean, almost 12 cents could buy you a coffee there. It's just ridiculous. So they have this. It's amazing to me thinking those 4 chose to stay in Vietnam, even though that just the opportunities that you could have in America. But to some of, I kind of, it's interesting to take it to the next generation. My cousin, Uncle Six's child, Uncle Six, he's the one with the fruit stand doing well. His child, I feel like, I mean, he lives a better life than me in America. I'm a software engineer, so I make decent money. But yet when I look at his life, I'm like, damn, you're living it good over there. Like you go on vacations all the time. Like he goes out fine dining all the time. Like there's a joke in the family that they say about him. They say that with that cousin, if it's not over a $20, I forget, if it's not over a $20 meal, he won't eat it. Like it's like, a $20 meal over there that's a lot of money. I mean, you could
if it's like 12 cents for a coffee.
Exactly.
So where does your dad fall in the order? Like what number is he?
He's number 4. So he's
middle kind of a little bit. That's so interesting. And it's interesting to see too, like how much is lost. Like I feel like in the United States, like we're always so focused on not even on the future, but on the present. So focused on the present, we forget our past, and we are not thinking about the future.
Yeah, this is not maybe not well connected. Me and Emmett spent like probably an hour the other day talking about what if we have family in Vietnam, should we send money over there? And it depends. Like when I compare myself to that cousin in Vietnam, I'm like, no, I'm not going to send him money. He's living it up. But then there's even take it at a different level. I'm trying to think of a good example. Aunt number 9 and her son. I think even though they don't have a whole lot, they have a house, they got food. That aunt loves him. Like she takes care of him so well. I'm like, man, if you came to America, then you guys won't have you'd be starting over. Maybe that love would change because it's a tougher life in America.
And all the friction of like, then the kid is gonna like, Americanize, and then that's
Americanize, exactly.
Too.
Yeah. So me and Emmett spent like an hour trying to figure out what privilege, or at what point is it right to send money, and does it, if they're okay.
That's such an interesting question. That is so interesting. I've been thinking about this too, because like, I mean, my grandfather came to the U.S. like through at the time. So he was like his family were dairy farmers, but he went and like was interested in medicine. He became a doctor, and then during World War II, they needed doctors, right? So the U.S. Navy was like providing a pathway to citizenship for doctors from abroad, and so that's how my family got here. And I don't know if they sent money back, but listen, like a lot of people that I work with now, like from Mexico, send money back. And it's like, and knowing like how different wages are here versus there. And it's like, well, why would they ever come here if they can live like kings there? And like these, like some people just like work like dogs, like they they slave away, just and their families living like kings, it's an interesting question. Like, at what point, like, yeah, that whole,
Yeah, some of the part of the conversation that we had on that was, I won't say their names, but some family members, some people don't manage their money well. So certain family members that may ask for money, they probably didn't. They might have not managed their money well. So are you enabling them by giving them money? And then on top of that, to take it even on the other polar side, because Vietnamese have this idea that America is a land of opportunity, which it is, but it is. But I think the golden age in America, I feel like the golden age for, what's the word I want to say? A car when it was back then, when it was $3,000 for a car, but yet the minimum wage was $7. But nowadays minimum wage is $8 and a car is $30,000. So you went 10x one way, but the salaries haven't gone. And then now with all the politicians and corrupt insurance companies, medical bills, car insurance, all that stuff is so much more expensive, and buying a house is so expensive. So I feel like things aren't exactly equal in Vietnam versus here. So all those Vietnamese, I try to tell them, and they don't believe me. I try to tell them in Vietnamese, and I try to explain to them, like, things in America aren't the way that you think that they were back in the 1975. Things have changed now. Oh,
that's so interesting. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's very like, and like, it's so hard to explain, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trying to explain inflation. There's just so much to it that's hard to explain.
And the systems, like insurance systems and stuff like that. Yeah. What, so one thing that I also wanted to ask about, like, so I was talking to a friend of mine from college who was driving cross country and recently stopped here. She and I, so she's Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I'm half Ecuadorian, and you know, now there's this new term like Latinx, and I'd referenced that earlier, like, and we were talking about that and like how the term Latino didn't even exist until recently. And in New York, it was like different. Like, she always thought of herself as Puerto Rican. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. You know, I thought of myself as Hispanic, and then we had to change to Latino. And then there's like this Latinx thing, which isn't even like a word, like, that makes sense in like Spanish. Like, it just like feels awkward. And it's really like, and so I'm interested to know, like the blanket term Asian, right? Like, is it, because I see this happening with Latinos now, or Latinx, right? Like, it's where it's, you know, a foreign culture is trying to say, hey, you are all this one thing. And then, oh wait, 5 years later, okay, you're all this other thing. And this is your new term. This is what we're going to call you now. And it's like, well, I'm completely, like, a Cuban is 100% different from like a Mexican, right? Like, like, especially like politically, right? Like, or you know, and all those intricacies of like, especially, I mean, like, great example was, they were trying to do like a get out the vote event and in Miami. And they were like, where most of the Latinos are Cuban and Venezuelan, like from these communist socialist countries, that they fled from there, right? And they're like, oh, well, who's like a good, like, popular, like, Latinx person that we can bring out? And they're like, oh, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like, who's Puerto Rican from New York, and like socialists see, like, because like they are not socialists, like people from these former, or okay, like Cubans and Venezuelans, like, see her as like the biggest threat. Like, it's like, oh, she's pushing this agenda, which is like the reason why we fled here. Like she is like no, like, why would we, like, they, you know, and it's wild that like a lot of people just think, oh, okay, it's like, okay, she's this powerful Latina woman, like, we'll throw her down. And it's like, no, this is not all the same. Is it similar in the Asian community where it's like there's like this blanket of like, oh,
I would say I would think Asians typically don't care about the blanket term of the title Asian. I would say probably the more offensive one if they said that they're Vietnamese and then the next person's like, oh, that's like Chinese. Like, no, there's quite a bit of difference. So I guess Asian, the term Asian is pretty broad and they'll accept that. But then if they say Chinese, but yet the other person said Vietnamese, that'd be more offensive. Does that answer your question?
Well, I guess well, I mean, and it's easier if you just say Asian because it is actually like a continent, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, whereas like, I guess the difficulty that I'm having and is, you know, other people, you know, Latinos are having now is like you don't see us, like, you know, it's like the, you know, the Puerto Rican versus Cuban example.
So being labeled,
which is actually very similar.
So like losing the how would you say it? Like
identity.
The identity. Yes.
And it's like you don't even get to choose your own identity because like, okay, now you're going to be Latinx.
Yeah.
Which feels even more foreign. Like Latino was accepted because like, okay, like it sounds like our language. It's like, oh yeah, it's our, okay, fine. It is our, you know.
Yeah.
Where it's like Latin, you know, and it's like where it's like, okay, you know, get it, like, you know, trying to be like remove gender, but it's like the language itself is gendered. But it's more offensive that it's like you're telling us what we should be called.
Yeah.
And you're putting us all
understood.
Under this one thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And on some of those forms, I mean, I wonder if it even matters. I don't know what they're maybe they're doing consensus with those forms, but sometimes those forms, I feel like I've seen it at like have I seen it at job interviews on the final form that you
fill out? Where you put, you put ethnicity.
So that's a weird one where I feel like on if you're on, I think on Indeed.com searching for jobs, often one of the screens, it says, what race are you? And I think they shouldn't be asking that. Maybe if they're doing it for consensus only, but maybe, so I think what me and you are getting at, ultimately racism shouldn't exist, but it does. Unfortunately it does.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole equal opportunity employer. I think more what I'm getting at though, is like Latinos or Latinx people, is what they need to be called now, like are definitely at odds with each other. They don't have the same culture, right? And it feels like in the United States, they try to put all Latinos into one box and think, okay, this is how they think, this is how they identify.
Yeah.
And is it the same thing for Asians, where it's like they try to put all Asians? No, it's different.
Well, I mean, as in culturally, I mean, Vietnam is so different from Thailand from China.
No, clearly, and I got China and Japan, like. Korea, like totally different. But do you feel like you're put into? So with this,
some type of bucket that are you asking if I feel some type of category that is not beneficial to me,
or not even beneficial? I don't know. For me, it's like, okay, well, Latinos are like. Okay, now I'm gonna generalize and be like, we're very proud. Now I'm making this statement like that, but it's like you. Why are you saying that like these are our values when like there's a country like 1,000 miles away that speaks the same language and you're calling the same thing, and they are completely polar opposite of my values. You know?
Yeah. I think. That's a huge thing. I don't know how to answer that. I think, I mean, even to take it a step further with like Hollywood media, newspaper magazines, usually there's almost never a Asian guy as a lead role. I think
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
What was that?
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Is it crazy? What's the movie? You're thinking that's the title of the movie?
No. I'm not thinking of Crazy Rich Asians. If that's what you're saying.
Okay.
But no, this is a TV show crazy ex-girlfriend. And the leading male like heartthrob is Josh Chan, and he's like a Filipino guy. Like,
yeah. So I mean, he's probably one of the few that landed a leading role. So that's just something in America. I think I guess I'm getting into stereotypes, as in Asian males aren't viewed as a masculine person. That's just, unfortunately, that's somehow in America, they have demasculinized men. Emasculated men, Asian men. And then female has hypersexualized Asian females. It's a funky thing.
Oh my God, the recent events, you know.
Oh yeah. And then, yeah. The recent events are you talking about the Asian hate thing with COVID? And and that was unfortunate. It was mostly Asian females and older men and older women being attacked. It's just
it's messed
really
up.
crazy.
It's messed up. Yeah, it's very strange, and it's like getting deep into psychology, because that's the other thing too. It's like not something that's spoken about. You know.
Yeah.
And even with the shootings, it was something that was not addressed, like by the media or the police, is saying like, I'm talking, you know, with the thing that happened in Atlanta, right? And it's like, well, why are you not addressing this? And they did start to some extent, but there's like a weird blindness. There's like a weird thing that like and I see, and maybe that's part of it too. Like as we become more Americanized, you know, through the generations, we start to lose our culture and we start to like become blind to it. But like, I feel like we have to, to your point, we have to empathize and understand like, hey, like, how is this person feeling? Like, how is this? Oh my goodness. And what you were saying about, like, there are very few leading Asian men. Like, you know, you talk about like, this is one thing that I learned from one of my mentors. Was like, we were talking about diversity and like in companies, right? And she used the analogy of like, okay, you can have, because I was like, oh, there are a lot of women who work for this company and we feel great, and you know, and you know, as a Black woman that I was talking to about this, she was like, okay, but like, look at it like a movie. Yeah, there can be a diverse cast, but who's in the leading roles? And that's key, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy then to hear you and Lynzie earlier talking about female in a male dominant world. So there's so many aspects, from race to sex to gender. So it's just earlier when you said maybe the I forget. I think you said something like the psychological part of humans. I think humans, the majority is just so selfish. So as long as they got food on the table, they get their toys whether they want to buy a brand new car. I think a lot of humans don't want to think outside of the box or think beyond what they know. If they have what they need, then even if it's at the backs of others, they're okay with it. I think, I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a human.
Humans justify it for themselves all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
But it's like, you don't even realize it. You don't even realize that you are affected. You think, I'm strong, like no sexism, whatever, isn't an issue, but you're affected without knowing it.
Oh yeah.
It's like a battered, like a, you know, an abusive relationship, you know, like, you know, where you think, no, I'm the strong person here. Like, and you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Tangent.
No, it's America, the abusive relationship, America and its citizens.
I mean, and I mean, any colonialism, like, it's like, gosh, India and England is a great one, you know, where it's like Indians like love an English accent. And it's like, they fucking oppressed you, but they're like, oh, it's the sexiest thing like ever. You know, it's like, you know,
yeah.
And like, I mean, it's again, like, not to be put on, because like, listen, I'm a very white Latina, like, I'm not a Black person, but like, a Black engineer that has really mentored me. She compared it to like being Black in America is an abusive relationship, and it gets put back on the abused person. Like, okay, it's your responsibility to get out of this. And it's like, well, you can't get out of it.
Yeah.
Like when you're,
born there, you don't get to choose where you're born.
Or not even being born somewhere, but it's like, okay, like this is my world. Like I can't.
Yeah.
And I am oppressed and I'm limited by my abuser.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I mean, it really blew my mind, like thinking about it that way, because you think about Black people in the U.S. and it's like, oh well, we're the land of opportunity. You can do whatever you want to, but it's like, okay, but you're gonna keep getting beaten down.
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyway, wow, big set. Again, like probably not the best to publish is like a white Latina, like an Asian American talk about like, oh, the Black experience. We know about that. Like,
yeah, I mean, we could try to sympathize though. That's what we're trying to do, I think, with this conversation.
So one of my mentors, I was talking with her about like, who's a Black woman. It was like, I don't know what to do about this thing that happened in Atlanta. She's like, I can't relate. Like, she was like, like literally like at a loss for words, where it's like, okay, this is racism and I see it, but like it's weird, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's, yeah, it's a complicated thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pleasure, Mercedes.
This is delightful.
Yeah.
This is really, really great.
Yeah, we'll plan a part 2. I'll reach out to you guys and see when you guys are free.
That'd be great. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your openness and for doing this in general.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
You guys are cool too. We like you too.
Yeah, we didn't hate this. No, later.
We were told not to. We were told not to during.
This is a portion of the full podcast. Be sure to check out the rest on PlastChicks. PlastChicks can be found on YouTube and on www.4spe.org/podcasts.